All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's 5:30. We'd like to stand for the acknowledgement. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of our beautiful lands and surrounding waters, the Wurundjeri and Wurundjeri people, and as a community we recognise and respect their cultural connection with the land and waters.
Almighty God, we ask you to bless this council and allow it to be an agent of change to the people of the city and beyond. Direct and prosperous deliberations to the honouring of your name and welfare of the people who it serves. Amen.
We gratefully acknowledge the men and women of the Navy, Army and Air Force who made the supreme sacrifice in the preservation of Australia's freedom and democracy. We also proclaim our gratitude to those who return to us.
Thank you. Please be seated. Welcome everybody. It's lovely to see many people. I think it's very rare to have in the gallery this afternoon or this evening. So welcome to you and welcome to those that are also listening at home. And I would like to apologise in advance. We have had a lot of trouble with our Zoom camera, and so we've actually got another camera going that isn't very good quality, but the sound quality will be very good. But unfortunately, you won't be able to see us smiling faces as well as perhaps you'd like to. We do have an apology from Councillor Peter Charles, and we don't have the items adjourned or lying on the table. Item 5 is minutes of the previous meeting, and the recommendation is that those minutes of the ordinary meeting of Council held on the 22nd of June be confirmed as true and correct. Do I have someone to move that way? Thank you, Councillor Hales, and seconded by Councillor Schofield. Do anybody want to speak to those minutes? Does anybody want to speak to those minutes? All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 5.2 of the minutes of the special council meeting on the 10th of July, and the recommendation is that those minutes be confirmed as true and accurate. Do I have someone to move that way? Councillor Henderson, thank you, and seconded by Councillor Mann. Either of you want to speak to those minutes? Anybody want to speak to those minutes? All those in favour? Thank you, that's carried unanimously. Item 6 is the declaration of members' interests, and this is to remind council members of their requirements under section 73, 74, 75, 75A and 75B of the Local Government Act. When members have an actual, perceived or material conflict of interest, they must declare their interest and provide full and accurate details of the relevant interest at the time the matter arises for consideration. We have a deputation from the Hunter Bay Sporting Club, and I believe that Jeff Burden, who is the Building Projects Manager, and Todd Kelly from the Hunter Bay Cricket Club will be the speakers for this deputation. Is that right? If you'd like to come up to the table, the two tables at the end, thank you very much, Jeff and Todd. You have 10 minutes to talk, and that 10 minutes includes time for the elected members to also ask any questions that they have as well. So thank you for coming this evening, and we look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Thank you.
You might need to turn on your microphones just on the bottom there. That's it. And yeah, beautiful. Thank you.
First of all, thank you, Mayor Jenkins, councillors and CEO Kelly for allowing us this time to present to you our deputation on behalf of the football club and the sporting clubs. And my name is Jeff Burden. Todd Kelly is my co-presenter tonight. So, sorry, if I can just sort of, I'll read what we've got here. So, over the course of the last 2 years or more, combined sporting clubs in Canada, football, netball, cricket and cricket have collectively worked to plan the redevelopment of the facility, which is our existing clubhouse. This is to deliver a co-use sporting club hub the inclusion of first-class unisex disability friendly change rooms and upgraded kitchen and catering facilities in members area. Not only are these efforts of the three clubs to work together on this project secured a combined grant of $950,000 from the federal and state governments. This collaboration has paved the way for a strong body, informally known as the Encounter-based sporting clubs. These three clubs are represented in the gallery tonight by members including Football Club President Todd Butler, Netball Club Stuart Johnson, and Todd Kelly from the Cricket Club, who is presenting with me. This body is in the process of formalising a partnership of the three clubs while continuing to work together in the full consultation of the members to achieve this exciting redevelopment of facilities that's been the heart of the Encounter Sports Precinct for almost 100 years. Council administration has been kept up to date with our progress over the past couple of years. The staff have helped us to achieve the plan, helped us through the planning process and with our request for grants to fund the redevelopment of our members and community, which our members have said is needed. Elected members, I'm sure Councillor Lillian, the Encounter Football Club public officer and an important contributor on this working group, has kept you informed of our plans. We do, and if you have questions for him, please discuss any points that you might have with him at any time. Importantly, our federal member Rebecca Sharkey, state member David Basham, along with Minister Corey Wingard, are all very aware of our plans, and to that end, we've achieved the $950,000, and they've supported us and provided that financial support to us. Consultation with our immediate neighbouring sporting clubs in the Victor Harbour Hockey Club and the Victor Harbour Riding Club has begun. A fresh start with all our real hope we can continue with them on a collaborative approach that's been successful for us in achieving our grants. We very much appreciate the time that these clubs have spent with us and provided to help today, and with them we've identified some of their hopes and goals and intend to keep working with them to achieve what we think might be a mutually beneficial outcome for the whole of the precinct. We also discussed among other clubs, the Dragon Club, who have been seeking a home for a number of years. All of these sort of come together pretty well when we consider the amenities that we're now providing. We will be. This is a shining example of the way we at the footy club and the Encounter Bay group have achieved things that in the past have been really fairly difficult to achieve. Initially, the initial stage of the project is shovel ready, and the intention is to be on site early September with a completion date of early to mid-March 2021. We've also have sort of developed a bigger picture for the precinct. And now that we're comfortable that we're going to achieve our goals or the goals of the club rooms themselves. We're trying to facilitate a more equitable situation for all of the precincts. To this end, we've looked at a bit of a master plan, which would allow us to bring the netball girls closer to the club rooms. And if you look at the master plan, you'll see that that involves discussions with the hockey club and the riding club for a bit of a land transfer to achieve that goal. There also means a chance for us to provide space for other sporting facilities within the precinct itself. By working together, we believe we can achieve the traditional encounter-based sports precinct. We can achieve at the traditional encounter-based sports precinct an outcome for all of our clubs. This concept is born out of a desire to help our Victor Harbour sporting community meet its growing needs without being the huge financial burden of this community that other concepts look destined to be. As the council board knows, there are many obvious benefits in investing in infrastructure at an established site. One that may not be clear to all the greater chance to all is the greater chance of a positive community culture and the sense of pride of new facilities can immediately inherit. Locally led projects by local sporting clubs will also drive local input, investment, trade, and be a greater benefit to our workforce and employment opportunities. To this end, we're presently discussing with a local builder to undertake the building works associated with the upgrade of the club rooms. I guess that's probably fairly concise. Concise thoughts, and probably if perhaps Todd can then talk to the financial side of it.
Yeah, so hello everyone, I'm going to just talk to the financial side of things. Hopefully like that a bit further, but it's broad level. Basically, as Jeff said, we've got stage one of the project to upgrade the kitchens and the change rooms down at the Encounter Bay sporting club rooms. That project's drawn up and shown ready. We've got $950,000 worth of approved grants, preliminary costing estimates of $800,000. So while we're here tonight, and we need some help from council to get it moving, we need a source of funding to facilitate the project. Ideally, a line of credit of $150,000. A commitment from council that a loan will be available to us for cost overruns, ideally $80,000 or 10% of the costing estimates. And we need a commitment from council that they'll cover the cost of the upgrades of the fire safety systems and the grease arrestor as the landlord, or provide us a loan to that end, which was approximately $100,000. What I thought I'd do is outline why it's low risk to council, and the $150,000 line of credit I mentioned will be drawn on and paid back to Neil during the project. That's like we've got the federal grant, it's a condition of that to make it happen, and that is that we have to basically prove at each stage of the progress payments have been made before we can get to go ahead to the next stage. The likelihood of a loan being made from council to cost overruns is minimal. The $800,000, as you can see up on the screen, includes a $100,000 provision for the fire safety upgrades and the grease arrestor, which cannot be paid with the grant funds. So that leaves $700,000 worth of costs with 900.
Can I just interrupt you for one minute? Because you have run out of time, I wanted to ask the other members if you can have an extra 5 minutes. So with one or 2 minutes. Can I ask a question with that one? Just a show of hands, be fine. Beautiful, thank you very much. Please continue.
Yeah, so as I was saying, $700,000 worth of grants covered by $700,000 worth of costs covered by $950,000 worth of grants. So we've already got sort of $250,000 worth of state and federal money as a contingency for it. We've also got what Encounter Bay's always had, which is volunteer labour and local knowledge, to also put downward pressure on costs. For example, project management with Jeff and myself, sourcing local tradesmen, site planning, rubbish removal, that type of thing, just to name a few. So, I guess to sum up, we've got an $800,000 upgrade to the facilities for multiple sports, covering women and men, for basically $100,000 outlay from council, if they commit to covering costs, which can be considered a landlord responsibility for the fire safety system upgrade and grease arrestor. So that's basically where we're at with stage one of the project. So Jeff and I welcome any questions you might have.
Thank you. Does any members have any questions for Jeff or Sean? Mr. Robertson.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff and Tom. Excellent presentation. It's great to see local clubs getting together, getting on with their improvement to their facilities off their own bat, doing it through local contractors, and moving quite quickly. I mean, to have all this work done by March next year, great effort. I'm sure you'll be able to do it. A couple of quick questions, if I might, on this sheet here. The cricket club, I guess, is not mentioned here, but I guess that's in the football, is it?
Yeah, so the cricket club's in the corner of the precinct and won't move, but I guess what the cricket club gets out of it is that we obviously upgrade our change rooms, kitchen, become more of a partner in the facility, as opposed to it being a football club. Certainly that's a sort of big reason why I've got the cricket club involved in it, and yeah, it's clearly where we'll get the grants, and we're also looking for our own space, which I guess is the broader stage 2 of the project, where we look to sort of extend the existing space out so that we've got more room to display memorabilia and things like that.
Yeah. The other one was was there any consideration given to the gym club moving to your facility? I noticed here that the basketball club has got some facilities between the Riding Club and the Cowboy Bowling Club. Was there any proposal to have the gym club out there as well?
Well, not at this stage, because we're just looking at what space we can utilise. And by doing a bit of landscaping and things like that, we can fit the basketball club in, and whether that can be incorporated in the gym club as well, or the gym club can be incorporated in that space. That basketball club, or the stadium, is around about 6,500 square metres, so there must be some opportunities for interaction between other different clubs that can use that space. That's what we've allowed for this stage, but we envisage.
I guess, yeah, I guess open the discussion to do that, which is it's an example of what would be achieved there.
Yeah, and just finally, well done on getting, excuse me, well done on getting a diverse group of sporting clubs to come together to basically be part of this whole complex. And congratulations on achieving it at a very reasonable, initially a very reasonable cost.
Any other questions from the members? Absolutely.
I'll just make a comment. It should be clear to members that Big Harbour Riding Club and Big Harbour Hockey Club have been involved in discussions already, and they're quite aware of the plans to move things around, and they're talking about the challenges and the opportunities that they have to retain their homes, their sporting grounds, and develop them as well, in line with what other clubs are doing around the place as well. So that's something that that's the next step. Carrying that sort of consultation, that's what this project would be sporting clubs and the club rooms, and carrying that through to have a look at the bigger picture ideas, so opportunities can be cited and worked upon.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, this will be over time, but
So, can I clarify? So you've spoken to the Hockey Club and Wars Club in relation to renovating their ball courts?
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. The Hockey Club and the Ryan Club have both seen these plans and the ideas, and they've gone off with an idea of what can be achieved, where they might have some issues, and just to talk about it so we can hear how it works, or how it could work, what would need to happen for that to work in the big picture. The goal is to have that the netball club, the netball course closer to the female facilities, obviously, and that's we've gone and put the sizings and the shapes and including the basketball stadium into the precinct to see what might fit where and how it could work. And that's sitting with those clubs to come and talk about the opportunity.
Thank you. So at the moment, the proposal is really about filling up the others.
Initially, yeah, that's correct, yeah, first statement.
No, that's what it's about. Thank you. Great. I'll happy to, yeah.
Thank you very much for your deputation. I'm sure this is just the beginning of a conversation that we will all have both within the elected member body, with staff, and also with all the class involved. I think it's a great vision that you've got, and I wish you all the best for it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We move on to item 8, questions from the gallery. Do we have no questions from the gallery? Do we have no petitions? Item 10.1, outstanding resolutions, and the recommendation is that council receive and note the outstanding resolutions July 2020 report. It's not an item to move on. Councillor Schofield and seconded by Councillor Hayes. Do either of you want to speak to that? Does anybody have any questions or want to speak to any of the outstanding resolutions? Councillor Robertson?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to ask about the Moreland Reserve, bottom of page 14, the Moreland Reserve turf trial. It's true that there are no funds allocated for 2021, quite extensive areas of trial plots of different turfs have been installed at the Moreland Reserve, and they're overseeing ongoing use. And I think I'd like to see that what we got from the council staff would be some ongoing assessments of how those different varieties that are planted down there have been performing in terms of, because they offer great opportunities for us to reduce water consumption, to reduce the maintenance costs by reducing the amount of mowing that's involved, and having a harder bearing surface. And I'd like to see that we continue on with the management options that were laid out for all. There have been 2 brand new varieties of turf planted down there. There was another 1 or 2 varieties of Kuyu planted by council staff having its own trial. And I would like to see us continue to manage those trial plots and to give us some feedback at the next council meeting on their assessments of those plants that are already being put down there.
Sure. My understanding is that the trial can't go ahead once we get all of the work that's going to be done at the causeway at the end of the year, and we can do this and lots of other things happening on board reserve, which will impact on the trial itself. But once that's finished, then staff will go back to the trial. But I'll ask perhaps Victoria if there's anything further that she wants to add to that.
Through the mayor, thank you for your question, Councillor Robertson. We will be able to provide you with some information that the various species are still being monitored and trialled. We haven't actually had a great deal of traffic or events down there to actually determine their durability. So some of those things, if schoolies are still to go ahead, we certainly will have an indication, potentially using some of the matting and also the use of those other facilities that will possibly go on there as a result of causeway. So while I'll see what information the Deco Parks and Gardens team have to bring a report back to August, it may not be August, it may be later, depending on the durability and its use, because that's what we were particularly looking for, was how they would actually stand up for events, traffic, marquees, and just general use.
Yeah.
But we are still continuing the trial as such, so to see.
Yeah, because I think the trial is already underway.
It is.
There. So it's to make sure that we do manage those different grasses according to the way they should be managed. And then that trial was to be basically done over a year. And then the council will make a decision to
Which one
will be chosen to plant out on the Warden Reserve.
Correct, and also, sorry to interrupt you, the other component of that is we're going to be digging up a part of Warden Reserve and we put the tanks in as part of the Railway Terrace precinct. So again, you know, we may have an indication of some of the other replacement or its durability in that space. So the trial is continuing, we just don't have funds to actually follow through with a particular species. This current financial year, we wanted longer to trial, and I will ensure that members are provided with update on that information.
Yeah. And just a second question, last question, is on page 15 in the middle, the McKinley Street parking precinct. This one here talked about the follow-up action being related to the expression of interest process, which, as I understand it, at this point in time has been postponed or sidelined or whatever. But anyway, I think it would be good to want an update of how we're going in relation to the agreement about the car park.
Through the Mayor, again, thank you for the question. As you would know, Council had a special council meeting on the 10th of July, which was held in confidence in regards to the outcomes of that. All parties are waiting to meet so that we can finalise those negotiations, and then the confidentiality order and all the information we're seeking will be released.
Okay.
Are there any other questions in relation to the outstanding resolutions? If not, I'll put that recommendation to the floor. All those in favour? Those against? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. 10.2 is the order of business. And the first recommendation is that council receive and note the report. Would someone like to move that way, receiving and noting? Thank you, Councillor Hales. Thank you, Councillor Robertson. Do either of you want to speak to that? Anybody want to speak to that? All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. The second recommendation is that council endorse the order of business for ordinary council meetings as contained in attachment B to this report. And from my perusal of the report, the only thing that's changed is that item 6, the declaration of members' interests are being taken out as per the discussion that we had at one of the last workshops. Would someone like to move that way? Thank you, Councillor Henson, and seconded by Councillor Hales. Any discussion? All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 10.3 is the review of the complaint handling policy, complaint handling procedure, unreasonable complainant conduct management policy, and the internal review of council decisions procedure. These all went out to elected members some 2 weeks ago. There hasn't been any feedback from anybody in relation to any of these, but Kyla's here to answer any questions if you have any questions for her. So the first recommendation is to receive a note of review of those policies. If someone would like to move that way, Councillor Schofield, thank you, and Councillor Henderson seconding that. Do either of you want to speak to it? Does anybody want to speak to it? All those in favour? It's carried unanimously, thank you. The second recommendation is that council endorse the complaint handling policy and an internal review of council decision procedure as provided at attachment B and F of the report in front of you. Would someone like to move that way? Thank you, Councillor Hales, and thank you, Councillor Robertson. Seconding that, do either of you want to speak to it? Does anybody want to speak to it? All those in favour? That's carried unanimously, thank you. Recommendation 3, that council load the draft complaint handling procedure as provided in attachment C to this report. Would someone like to move that? Thank you, Councillor Schofield, and seconded by Councillor Henderson. Would either of you like to speak to that? Would anybody like to speak to that? All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Recommendation 4 is that council revoke the unreasonable complainant conduct management policy and that council endorse the unreasonable complainant conduct management procedure as provided at attachment D and E to this report. Would someone like to move that way? Councillor Kemp, thank you, and Councillor Schofield seconding that. You want to speak to that, Councillor Kemp?
Thank you, Mayor Jenkins. Just a question to Kyla. I do apologise for not being concerned, but basically, under the complaint handling procedure, we do have mediation, conciliation, and neutral evaluation processes for that.
Skip, let's, you know, you want to just come take a seat at the end there, just so that Councillor Kemp. You can give Councillor Kemp back.
As I was saying, the complaint handling procedure has a mediation, conciliation, neutral evaluation process. So I understand the unreasonable complaint conduct management procedure does not. Is it worthwhile having that available that if we do get a lot of complaints coming in from one person continuously, should there not be a mechanism there to have some mediation with that person to try and resolve those issues they're raising, or conciliation or neutral evaluation of the continual complaints? But I would have thought that would be one area that we should cover up.
My understanding, and I'll let you know if I'm wrong, is that prior to something becoming unreasonable complainant conduct matter, that it would have already gone through that complaint handling process, and there would have been a process prior to that being the mediation or conciliation option. This is about that unreasonable complaints just being particularly put in and option. And there are others in that we can do. Can you clarify that, Tyler?
Sure. As she sort of said, Councillor.
Can you turn your microphone on this?
Sorry, just speaking to it. Sorry, now. As you sort of mentioned, Councillor Kemp, we can actually put in those provisions within the unreasonable complaint management procedure. However, this is the last resort, sort of like, it's a mixture of both, as the Mayor sort of said, you sort of go through the process of complaint handling procedure, it escalates to the unreasonable complaint conduct procedure, but there is no, there's nothing to eliminate that we can't have that provision in there as well. It's very rare that it does get escalated to that procedure, but it's something that runs and someone that all councils should have a policy procedure in place that we can address unreasonable management complaints. I can't see this to be incorporated, it's just another area that we could include. Let's see it's otherwise, but.
Sorry. Through the mayor, the question call. Sorry. well, I tend to agree, most of the time, we would not use our regional complaint handling policy or procedure until such time as the complaint handling policy has been absolutely exhausted. It's never really taken there on one complaint. It's been taken because the complainant is, we'll keep revisiting the policy of complaint policy. And so my dealings with it, I've only ever dealt with the unreasonable complaint procedure once in this organisation and once in another organisation. It's never really used unless there's a continual process of complaints coming from one complainant. It's, it's not something that we would just invoke or enact without going through due process.
I appreciate the comment from Kylie and Celsi. I guess I was just trying to look at the large chance of opportunity to try and fix the problem further, even though you exhausted the other side. When it gets to that level, I just thought maybe it's still an opportunity to try and mediate it first and to say, I know you go through debtors and things like that. But yeah, it's just a thought.
Councillor Silver, do you want to speak? Sorry, does anybody else want to speak to the remuneration? Councillor Kemp, do you want to say anything else? I'll put that to the floor. All those in favour? Let's carry unanimously. We now move to item 2.4, which is a review of the donations policy. And unless anybody's got any objection, those three recommendations are fairly simple, and I'll do them on block. If someone would like to do them on block. Councillor Schofield, thank you, and Councillor Robertson, moving them on block. Councillor Henderson, did it say?
No, he said stuff.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Henderson. And Councillor Robertson. Either of you like to speak to that? Councillor Robertson?
Yeah, I have a question, Mayor. On page 88 of this policy, at the very bottom of page 88, you'll see there it says that for the purpose of applying this policy, the following definitions apply. And that there are amateur sporting teams in there, but it says that down the bottom, this does not include individual athletes or recreational activities such as mountain biking, which are not considered to be sports under this policy. And I was thinking, wow, that's something else that have been used for the mountain biking people. And I wonder what other sports are not considered to be applicable under this policy. Because I definitely think that this one that's mentioned as an example, mountain biking, would definitely be a sport heading towards international, towards Olympic status, as far as I know. So,
I'll ask Karen Hodgins to respond to that.
Thank you, through the Mayor. The reason it was, the definition was where the spoke was to try and capture those sports that were incorporated bodies more so than those unmoral championship sport and recreation pursuits, largely because council actually has a grant program that already covers that, and the donations policy is about trying to find those areas that slip through the cracks of our grants programs and look to apply these policies on the donations policy to those.
yes, but are there any other sports that, I mean, we've got some in Victor here, like the dirt track racing. Is that considered to be a sport or not?
Through the chair, it would depend on whether it fit into those other criteria, so I'm not familiar with their status in terms of being incorporated body and some of those other criteria. I'd have to look at it with a bit more information at the end.
I think Councillor Robertson, what this is getting at, and Karen tell me, Dr. Robertson can tell if I'm wrong, If I had a mountain bike or went mountain bike riding, then it wouldn't constitute a donation to me as an individual. If it was an incorporated mountain bike riding club, then there may be a donation that is provided to the club or individuals within that club under that incorporated body. So that would be the difference. Is that correct? That's correct. Does that clarify your question a bit more?
Not really, Mayor, because I mean, when you look at the purposes for the donations that are there on page 89, for instance, when those individual, or I would say sports, like mountain biking, sure, as an individual goes out to a mountain bike track in Victor Harbour and races around there on their own, that's an individual arrangement. But I think that for some of these sports, there's the ideas that they might like to be holding championships and so on here. This is where a lot of the donations comes from the council, particularly.
So if they wanted to, so for example, if I have a mountain bike, and just as you said, follow on mountain bike, which I do, and go for a ride, I would be eligible for any of these donations. However, if I belong to a mountain biking club, that was an incorporated club, and the club was holding championships, then I would be eligible through that club. That is where that definition comes in. It needs to be, it's not individual athletes or recreational activities, but it's actually through an incorporated club.
Through the Mayor, Councillor Robertson, probably just to clarify, we do have specific grant programs for individual athlete grant programs and the sporting club grant programs. This is around donations up to a certain amount, a small amount that wouldn't ordinarily fit within our normal sporting grant programs. So it's not to say we don't have funds available for their sporting activities, like if there was a mountain bike competition and there was an event here and they sought a grant, or the Mud and Tar group, which are two examples we've used. This is more around donations that can happen at any time. So it's not saying our sporting club members can't apply for donations either.
Yeah, thank you, CEO, through the Mayor, but one of the important parts about the way that the council supports sports, and particularly when those sports develop to the point of holding a competition that attracts a lot of people coming into the city, the important part of deferring the costs of those events is the in-kind support that council provides across a lot of things like the setting up of facilities, road traffic control, etc.
Councillor Henderson, do you want to make comments? Does anybody else have any questions? Did you, I'm sorry, did you go move there? Or I'll put that to the floor. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. The next item on the agenda, 10.5, is the audit committee terms of reference. And you should have all got a Councillor Glasgow.
Yes, sorry, James, I'd like to declare material conflict of interest. As the current chair of the audit committee, I received an additional member allowance, so I'll be in the chamber. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Glasgow. You should have all got an updated recommendation from Harry, I think. Sent that around to me. All members, can I just have an indication that you have all got that? Yeah. So the first item is that the recommendation is that council will receive a note the audit committee terms of reference report. That can move to Councillor Schofield and seconded by Councillor Henderson. Do you want to speak to that? Does anyone have any questions or want to say anything? All those in favour? That's carried unanimously, thank you. The second item is that council endorse membership option 1 in the report and commence for recruitment of suitably qualified independent chair. Moving that way, Councillor Kemp, and seconding that, Councillor Havels. Do you want to speak to that, Councillor Kemp?
Thank you, Nick. I'd like to do a variation to this motion. The variation is to use option 2 instead of option 1. And I'll just give my reasons.
Do you have the approval of the seconder? You will draw your seconder. If you have somebody to, sorry? Yeah, I'm just saying, is there another seconder? Because you've moved option 2.
So not a variation.
You're moving option 2.
Well, now I'm moving option 2 as an alternative motion, yes.
Do I have the second for option 2? Councillor Glasgow. Councillor Glasgow. Councillor Robertson. Councillor Kemp, would you like to speak to your motion?
And the reason why I'm preferring option 2 is because when we look at the papers, there's normally sometimes when we have these various options that come up to the chamber, they're actually all under recommendation in council to choose which option is best suited. But for some reason, this one's only option 1. But the reason why I want option 2 in it, because when you look at the provided by the administration on the reasons why option 1 is better than option 2 and option 3, and I've just figured out, just for the gallery to understand, that the advantage of having an additional independent member who chairs the meeting includes enhanced perception of independence of the committee, broad skills-based relation to governance, finance, and risk management requirements. Now, of course, being the chair has a relevance about sharing meeting procedures. Less political decision on matters that are under review, yes. Increased ability for elected members to participate in the debate. Well, all meeting members have equal opportunities to debate. And aligned with the bill, well, the reform bill does not refer to independent members as a chair, it refers to having 3 independent members. So again, a little bit misleading with that information. Why option 2? Well, option 2 is about 2 elected members and up to 3 independent members to bring that extra skill set to it. But the advantages of having an elected member chairing the meeting includes local government knowledge, current council knowledge, local government meeting procedures knowledge, attends at council meetings to brief the full council on the audit committee's work and recommendations, and greater accountability to the community. And that's what we're elected for, to represent our community. And I think this is one of the key areas that where our elected member can represent the community according to those documents. And I think it's really to maintain an elected member, who that person may be, as the chair. And as Tim Councillor Westbrook has shown over the last nearly 6 years, he's done a very good job in that seat, and there's been no issues by having elected members. Now, to change it, when what about it, I don't know. Having an extra independent on there, yes, great value. But the chair, I think, for a community to see its elected members doing those types of jobs should be supported and allowed to continue in that reference that elected member should be the chair, as in other section 41 communities as well.
Councillor Robertson, is there anything that you'd like to say?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I think on my experience of being on the audit committee for the last year and a bit, that at least this one here in Victor Harbour works extremely well. We have 2 very able and 2 very able independent members who have worked very well with us and given us good enlightenment where we need that. Very rarely, I can't think of any time actually, when there wasn't a unanimous vote on the proceedings that were taking place. And so to me, the importance of having the elected members on the board, I agree with what Councillor Kemp is saying, but it's also, I think, an important an important experience for elected members to have, to be on the audit committee, to be able to get some insight into the audit process, better understanding of how our finance system and how our accountability systems work.
So, Councillor Robertson, can I just clarify what you're saying? You said, it sounds like you're saying, you're suggesting that elected members won't be on the audit committee. This option 2 is about having a elected member as the chairperson of the audit committee. There'll still be 2 elected members on the committee, but this option specifically looks at an elected member as the chairperson rather than an independent member as the chairperson.
As it stands there, having retain an elected member of the chairperson for the reasons already outlined, then the committee would consist of 2 elected members and up to 3 independent members. I agree with that.
Yeah. I might just ask the CEO to clarify a couple of points.
Through the mayor, if I may, with councillor Kemp's proposed motion of option 2, I would suggest, again, just a possible variation, but that the provisions come into effect following the expiry of the current elected member term on the 22nd of November 2020. Because the current terms of reference has 3 elected members and your elected member as a chair and 2 independents. This new process would require the removal of one of your elected members, and because your chair's resignation, the current resignation of Councillor Gladwell, was on the proviso that an appropriately independent, experienced chair was appointed. So his resignation would have no effect if this resolution was supported, and that's why I'm suggesting it would come into effect if it's supported by the Chamber when your current term of all 3 elected members expires on the 22nd of November 2020.
Thank you, CEO. I guess I didn't articulate that very well, but that would be the process that my thoughts were following. That is maintain status quo to November, and as this resolution gets up, then the change will be maintained.
So would you like me to add that wording at the end? So it would be that Council endorse membership of option 2 in this report, and that this provision come into effect following the expiry of the current elected member term.
Yeah, for government purposes, I think you can clarify that more. Thank you.
Does anybody else want to speak in relation to option 2?
Thank you, Mary. I initially ended up seconding option 1 because I did genuinely believe that that was the best way forward for our audit committee. Having spent 4 years on the audit committee myself, and with yourself, had experience similar to Councillor Johnson and Ken in how this committee functions. And right at the start of last term council, so it's not 2014 election, I'm pretty sure we considered a motion very similar to this. At the time, we didn't understand the process, and so we decided not to go down that path. But with hindsight and reflection, I think it is the right thing. Similar to our council development assessment panel, these committees are established to bring in outside expertise into our council and use that and leverage it to make better decisions to improve the city's processes. And like the development assessment panel, which does have an independent chair, I think your committee could equally benefit from an independent chair. Other councils around the state do have independent audit committee chairs, and it seems to work just fine. So I think that is the best way forward. So unfortunately, but other than the original recommendation should be established.
Thank you. Does anybody want to say anything else? That's Ken, do you want to close the vote?
I think the issue around this is the independent members increasing to 3 will bring the expertise that everyone's looking for. And there's no question about that. No one's questioning that. It's about providing leadership to our community through the elected body. This is what we're here for, to provide that leadership. And we don't sit up to take some of those chairing of those committees. and allow it to all independent members to come in and take over. We're not providing that leadership status to other people. Yeah, the cap, well, one question then, there's an evening independent chair. I mean, there's a criteria under the legislation that it is. It could be a elected member, but because there's only one elected member on the cap, it makes it reasonable to keep the cap as an independent person. Again, it's about the process of meeting procedures, as I said before, under the various options. It's all about the qualities that the elected member brings to the table as a chair compared to an independent person. Local government knowledge, current council knowledge, local government meeting procedures knowledge, attends the council meetings and brief the full council and the audit committee's work and recommendations, and great accountability to the community. That's what we're here for. And this is one way we can demonstrate that whoever that elected member will be, I think we should maintain the status quo to provide that leadership and a good communication to our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kim. And Councillor House has foreshadowed that he will be moving option 1 if this option 2 doesn't get up. So I'll now put option 2 to the chamber. All those in favour? Those against? Thank you. That motion is lost.
Division, please.
No division. All those in favour? Just wait for Craig to catch up. Councillor Robertson. And those against, Councillor Henderson. Councillor Ridley. Councillor Mann. Councillor Schofield. And Councillor Harris. The motion is carried. Vote lost. Councillor Harris, you foreshadowed that you want to endorse membership option 1 in the report and commence recruitment of suitably qualified independent chair. Do I second for that? Councillor Schofield? Can I speak to that, Councillor Harris?
No, thank you, no changes. I think as I outlined before, that's why I think it's the best option into the project.
Thank you, Councillor Schofield.
Thank you, that.
Councillor Henderson.
Yes, I just want to add that one of the advantages of this option is the increased ability for elected members to participate in the debate. And I think, Councillor, I think that does address a lot of your issues. If there's not an elected member as the chair, they have more of a greater ability to enter into the debate because they can't leave the debate on the chair.
Thank you, Councillor Robertson.
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to put a variation into this, if this option 1 is going forward, and that is that the term of the independent chair be limited to a single term. I think one of the real downsides of a lot of these independent chairs is that they seem to have a permanent appointment to not only to be chairing multiple audit committees, but they also seem to be taking on board having the job over and over and over again. I don't believe that brings to the council the required level of diversity of expertise, and I'd like to see that we include in this option and that the term of the independent chair be limited to a single term.
Councillor Harris.
Thank you, Mayor Jenkins. I don't agree to that variation. I believe the council can make that decision when they appoint or reappoint, so it's well within the state that's already built into the system.
Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Robinson. Does anybody else have anything that they would say, Councillor Kim?
Yes, I just want to make a clarification. What I said before, why we don't need anything from you as chair, but just to give a clarification for Councillor Henderson's comment. The chair of this committee, like the CAT, for example, the chair has a lot of input into discussion, even votes. So the chair has that ability. It's not like the principal member that's there, there's a limited opportunity at times, but generally speaking, these chairs do have a lot of input as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I now put that to the vote. All those in favour of option 1? Those against? That's carried. Thank you very much.
Not even the budget, Mayor.
All those in favour? Councillor Henderson. Councillor Henderson.
The screen's on. For Councillor Henderson.
For Councillor Henderson. Councillor Lee. Councillor Mann. Councillor Schofield. Councillor Hayes. And against, Councillor Robertson. And Councillor King. The motion is carried. Recommendation 3 is that council establish a selection panel comprising of the chief executive officer or delegate, 1 council member from the audit committee, 1 independent member from either the City of Otago, Alexandria Council, or the District Council of Danglila Audit Committee, for the purpose of reviewing, shortlisting and interviewing applicants, and recommend to council the appointment of an independent chair to the audit committee. So I'll take that away. Councillor Nixon? For the second minute? Do you want to speak to that, Councillor Nixon?
No.
Councillor Schofield? Is there anybody who wants to speak to that? If not, we'll actually vote. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you.
Division, please.
Certainly. All those in favour, please stand. Councillor Henderson? That's great.
Thank you, Mayor.
Henderson? Councillor Lee? Councillor Robertson? Councillor Lang? Councillor Schofield? Councillor Hayes? Against, Councillor King? The motion is carried. So with recommendation 4, if there's just 1 person who would like to nominate, then we go to recommendation 4. If there's 2 people or more that would like to nominate to be on the selection panel, then in accordance with the nomination and appointment to internal and external positions on the code of practice, meeting procedures, will call suspension of meeting procedures and call for nominations and do a secret ballot for that. So can I ask whether or not there's any nominations to be on that panel?
Required to be one of the elected members of the audit committee. As per the resolution, it's just in the to be on selection panel.
has to be one of the elected members of the board.
Yeah, but who to nominate somebody? If possible, I'd like to nominate Councillor Glasgow.
And also one member of the committee because it was
He's only resigned, we have an independent member is.
to be called.
Just with my understanding is that Councillor Glasgow resigns when an independent member has been appointed. So therefore, he's still a member of the audit committee. You can let me know if I'm correct.
His very last recommendation in the one that has been circulated does actually say that Councillor Glasgow will remain as the chair of the audit committee once the independent member has been appointed. So currently he is chairing the audit committee.
So as chair of the audit committee, he can be nominated to be on the recruitment panel.
That's correct.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Glasgow for the recruitment panel. Are there any other nominations?
Just questions on the relevance that Councillor Glasgow will accept nomination, I guess. If he doesn't accept the nomination.
Is it appropriate that he is asked?
I think so.
Given that he's declared a conflict of interest in relation to, Carly, can you go and ask him? Can I just clarify that no members concerned or if you have any concerns with me actually nominating somebody, can you please let me know?
Because there was no details on it.
Just a clarification, please, in the agenda, so I thought I saw Councillor Robertson put his hand up when we spoke about the nomination, so I'll just clarify if he's still wanting to nominate or not.
I'm sorry, I didn't see you put your hand up, Councillor Watson. Would you still want to nominate as well?
No, I'll leave it.
Councillor Glasgow would be happy to accept the nomination, but is also happy for another member that's on the board committee to be nominated as well, but he's happy to accept it.
Thank you. Councillor Watson, did you also want to nominate?
No, I said no.
Also. Councillor Kim?
No.
No. So, in that case then, we move to item 5. That the council appoint Councillor Glasgow to the audit committee selection panel. Someone like to move that one? Sorry, Councillor Schofield and Councillor Hayes. Councillor Kim? No. All those in favour? Those against? Was carried. The item 6, that Councillor Mandy will into terms of reference is very documented. Got someone like to move that way? Councillor Schofield, thank you. Can I second for that? Councillor Henderson, thank you. Do either of you want to speak to that? Does anybody want to speak to it? All those in favour? Those against? That's carried, thank you.
Division, please.
All those in favour, please stand. So we're going to trouble with the.
Doesn't go on the screen.
4, Councillor Henderson. Councillor Whitley. Councillor Robertson. Councillor Mann. Schofield. And Councillor Hales. And against Councillor Campbell. Item 7, for which motion carried. Recommendation 7, that Councillor Glasgow remains chair of the conclusion of the appointment of an independent chair to the committee. Councillor Henderson moving that way, and Councillor Schofield seconding that. Anybody want to speak to that? Does anybody want to speak to that? All those in favour? Carried unanimously, thank you. Now come to item 10.6, which is the strategic planning program. And the recommendation is that the council receive and note the 2021 strategic planning program report and flow chart. And you would have received a new flow chart when you came to chamber. It's been updated. And the update relates to the audit committee actually seeing the draft strategic plan prior to it going to community consultation, which is a recommendation that came from them previously. So can I have someone to move that recommendation, please? Thank you, Councillor Glasgow. And second, just someone second that. Thank you, Councillor Hales. Do you want to speak to it, Councillor Glasgow?
Just a very quick comment. Very pleased to see this. My only comment would be, I'd like to see the company move quicker. But, yeah, they're late there, I suppose.
Councillor Hales, do you want to say anything? Does anybody have any questions about the flow chart? Councillor Kim?
Yeah, thank you, Eugene. It's quite good in the sense that it gives you a bit clear direction now on how the whole process. But again, it's sort of, we don't start our alternative business planning budget until February 2021, compared to what we did this last financial year. For this year, we actually started much earlier. Can the CEO give us a little bit of a background on how these workshops will go? Will they be a 2-hour, 4-hour, or whole day session to actually cover off on the discussions? And because there's so many presentations given in that time, it feels like it's very limited. So we've got one workshop on capital, one on operating, and one on rates. And then we're down into the draft a new business plan in April. So really, to me, it doesn't seem to have enough time to really debate and break down the budgets and capital and what we want to achieve.
Through the Mayor, obviously the duration of the workshops, and you really work through each of the matters will be some consideration to. I haven't actually given direct thought to those programs. It may be that we do have a full-day session where more than one workshop is combined. So that's something that Kelly and I, the Manager of Finance, will also look at the best way of getting time for members to give good consideration and actually not just race at an evening. So that's what we want to make sure that members have more time. So in terms of actual days, whether they're full days, half days, or 2-hour sessions, I haven't determined that as yet, but this obviously gives that indication of the month and the process. And if we can do it quicker or sooner, we definitely will. But the process, in terms of the annual business plan budget will commence before February. There is a bit of work that occurs way before then. A lot of this process is part of that.
Any other questions or comments from members? If not, I'll put that recommendation to the floor. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 10.7, which is the 2020 Local Government Association Annual General Meeting, proposed item of business. And I will take both of those recommendations on block. If you're happy with that, Councillor Hales, thank you. Thank you. Someone to second that? Thank you, Councillor Mann. Councillor Hales, would you like to speak to that?
Thank you, Mayor Jenkins. I would certainly like to move this way in relation to the proposed item of business being the attendance at meetings for our joint meetings. I raised this with staff, and so we're very thankful for the work that Victoria Carter putting this report together. I think, as we all saw and experienced as we adapted over the initial stages of COVID and restrictions on gatherings, etc., we were still able to conduct business meetings in a very effective manner using technology at hand, which is also provides other efficiencies, not just in time, but also in travel expenses and the like. As outlined in the report, I think it would be, moving forward, a shame if we were to lose those things that we're getting through this innovative period by just having to comply to the old same rules. And that's why I think that this is a good way of going without trying to nudge the state government to, I guess, loosen the regulations in that particular area, while still allowing for the public to engage and see public meetings in the same old fashion, whether it's also available on the screen down here, so that there is that very accessible option versus the online. But there are definitely ways of doing it, so we don't lose all the cash through this period. So I believe in this.
Okay, Councillor Hales. Does anybody else want to speak to this? Councillor Mann?
Thank you, Mayor Jenkins. Yeah, I don't have too much to add, just to commend Councillor Hales on his forward thinking with this motion and what he's trying to do with this. I think it's a great initiative and thing to push for, especially a lot of elected members around the table have a fair travel distance to council. I think to be able to limit that and I think provide efficiencies for our meetings through the technology. I think it's a great solution, and hopefully the Local Government Association can get some traction with it. But yeah, just I guess reiterating what Councillor Hales said is that I think it would be unfortunate to take a step back after we've come forward, and so I think this is a good motion. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Mann. How does your members' intention to it should be attachment B, not attachment A to the report? Does anybody else want to speak to the report? If not, I'll put it to the floor. All those in favour? Those against? That's passed unanimously, thank you. So we'll take that to the cell, first to cell, first, isn't it? So we'll take that to cell, we'll then take that to the MGA. Couple of handles. Well, words today, sorry. The 10.8 statutes amendment, local government review bill. The recommendation is that council receive and note the statutes amendment, the local government review bill report, and that the feedback contained within the report and in attachment B as provided from the basis for the submission from the City of Victor Harbour to the Local Government Association. I'll do both of those on block. If you're happy with that, would someone like to move that way? Councillor Hales, thank you. Anyone second? Councillor Henderson, thank you very much. Councillor Hales, do you want to speak to that?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Jenkins. Once again, I want to commend those that put the report together. It's a very thorough job in analysing both the bill itself as well as the local government feedback and compiling our own feedback to this I think it all seems very logical. I totally agree with the stances you've taken in supporting or supporting different parts of the legislation. I can't help but say, but I hope the state government also holds themselves to the same standards that they want to hold local government to. So yeah, I look forward to that.
Thank you, Councillor Hales, and I agree with this. Councillor Peterson, do you want to speak to this? No? Does anybody want to speak to any questions? Councillor King?
No, thanks, Mayor Jenkins. I do have one concern with a section in the report, which the LGA put together as guidance for us to consider and which is supported all the way through by the council. Is 80B, 80B, suspension of council members subject to an intervention order. The CEO will have a discretion to suspend a member. I'm really not comfortable with the CEO if this bill goes through, that then going through that the CEO has that power to suspend a member. We are elected by the community as independent people, and we're responsible through the process of policies and procedures in the Government Act. So for the government to put that in, to take control of the elected members through the CEO, I just find that really flies in the face of local government and why elected members are brought together through election process, and to be accountable and responsible for their actions. And there are provisions and systems in place to deal with that if there's inappropriate behaviour from a elected member. To give that power to the CEO, I feel is stepping outside of exactly what all this is about the government. So I would like to see, and I support that part of the motion, whether I need to do an amendment or to change that out. Other members do the same.
Just ask the CEO to clarify that section.
Through the Mayor, are you referring to section 80A and B? Because it's to do with the training and development. So while I agree with some of your sentiment, through the CEO's group, our preference is the word state, not may, but must, in that if a member hasn't actually adhered to the requirements that they should in terms of their training and development requirements or their submission of their electoral return, that we must report the member, not may, because the may is a discretion that CEOs don't wish to have. So if you haven't met those requirements, then must, and that's what the CEO's group is seeking of the reform. Is that the part, because that's 80A and B is to do with training and development requirements. It's not about normal behaviour of an elected member misconduct. This is about them not fulfilling their training requirements or returning their electoral returns.
Thank you, CEO. But to suspend a council member who is the subject of an intervention order. So you're talking about that process that by not putting in a return, you'll be given an intervention order, and if you don't comply to it, then the CEO will suspend. Is that how you see that?
It says that we may refer the member to this body for an intervention order, which would suspend you in the reform bill. My preference it says we must, in that the CEO doesn't have a choice. So we're not determining your fate. If you haven't done what you're supposed to do, then we are obliged to do a certain thing. So it's not about the CEO having any sort of power. It's like, I must report if you haven't done your registered interest form.
Thank you.
Are there any more questions or queries? If not, I'll put the motion to the floor, the recommendation to the floor. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. I now move to item 10.9, the internal review of council decision. Minutes of previous meeting, the 24th of February 2020. Although this recommendation in this item relates to an internal review of the council's decision to endorse the minutes of the 24th of February meeting is true and correct, I'm actually going to declare a perceived conflict of interest in relation to this matter I've had nothing to do with the internal review process. That's been done quite independent, and by the governance officer. However, I'm aware that the review was triggered by a complaint from a member of one of our residents regarding material conflict of interest, and I declared that some of the gallery unfortunately didn't hear the declaration of, so I will therefore declare a received conflict of interest for this item, and perhaps that Mayor Henderson would be like to come up and share that. I'll leave the table.
I'll also declare a received conflict of interest, given that within this matter, my own declaring of a received conflict of interest in this is a part of that matter that's raised in complaint. So I'll declare a received conflict of interest, and I'll also with the chairman.
Okay, item 10.9. So the recommendation is that council receive and note the section 270 internal review of council's decision, minutes of the previous meeting, 24th February 2020. Councillor Campbell, moving that way?
Yes, Deputy Mayor and Vincent, but also an alternate motion for that.
What is your alternative?
I'll bring it back for
Okay.
Green to talk about the Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. So councillor Campbell, are you moving the motion on the table?
I'm moving an alternative motion. Yeah.
So you're not
No,
receiving and noting
no,
report and paper?
no, I'll not receiving. No, I'm not moving that motion. So I'll wait that way you want me to. If you want that to go through, then I'll move an alternative motion.
We're simply receiving the report. Okay. The alternative motion is foreshadowed here, that council endorses an external independent investigation of the section 270 internal review of council's decision, minutes of the previous meeting, 24th February 2020, process and other relevant documents and recordings to this matter. So, go back to the original recommendation now, foreshadowed an alternative. Do we have a mover for the original recommendation in front of us?
Just a point of order, sorry. Councillor Kent has the opportunity, any motion he chooses.
Correct, he does, and I just asked through Deputy Mayor, I said the chamber, if councillors Kent does not want to receive a note report at all, then it doesn't need to move that motion. He wants to move that one on that's clarified. So Councillor Deputy Mayor Henderson asked, will receive the note of the report, which is first, and then foreshadowing the motion, or you not wanting to receive the note, the investigation that was done as per the Vice Council's policy and procedure, which we're required to report to council that we have done. You don't want to do that, you want to just move your motion, you can, but one won't. Doing that won't stop you from moving your proposed motion to an external investigation as well. Sorry, couldn't use my words.
So councillor Hales has proposed the initial recommendation. Do we have a second for that? Thank you, councillor Schofield. Would either of you like to speak to this report? All those in favour of receiving that report? All those against? That is carried. Councillor Kent, would you like to propose your recommendation?
Yeah, I move that the council endorses an external and independent investigation on section 270, internal review of council decision, minutes of the previous meeting, 24th of February 2020, OC 14622020, process and other relevant documents in accordance with this matter. The reason why I put this motion up is that there are three things that come out of this internal review which warrants an external independent investigation. The first one is the applicant's issues or concerns that the council response is an ongoing opposing position. So we have a community member raised some issues under the internal review request, and the council's response, to me, is nothing being resolved between those two parties, the council or the community member. So one of the things that came out of the internal review and also the process from the response from the council was that there was complaints or allegations against council staff and council, as well as allegations against the community member making allegations. So that, to me, I find that a little bit distressing that this comes out of the review and nothing's been resolved. It's really around what is an allegation, whether it's perception or could be seen not to the right outright allegations. In other words, what I'm saying is that where the complainant's points were more of an accurate questions or perception of what could be seen, but not actually outright allegations. So that's the problem there, that the two documents that are being well written from both from the community member as well as the council and quite comprehensive, but still to me has not been resolved. The other issue that comes out of that review, that process, is there's legal issues going back to 1999. It talks about Division 3, conflicts of interest, section 73, 74, 75, 75A, and 75B. Part 4, minutes of council and committee meetings and list of documents, section 91, and also council code of practice for meeting procedures. When they come into a question in a review process, and there's no resolution as to agreement as to what's right or wrong, I think this again requires some form of investigation because it's not expanded. The purpose of the agenda item 6 and recording of the minutes, there was a confusion around the intent of the agenda item 6 as to what was that item about in the workshop last year. My clarity in my mind was about that the elected members will get reminded about deterring conflict of interest, but also how it's applied, and on many occasions the mayor asked for people to make a declaration at that time, at item 6. So that doesn't get recorded in the minutes at that time, it should get recorded at the item. So the minutes at various stages recorded declarations at item 6, and other times it didn't, the people recommended those declarations. Again, anonymous again, which has been raised by the internal review request. So when recording the minutes, where 3 different members voted against the 24th of February 2020 minutes as being not true and accurate. Also, another 4 elected members voted against the 27th of April 2020 minutes as not being true and accurate in reference to recording the minutes. Again, when 3 or 4 elected members do not agree with the true and accurate records, then there's a problem. I thought that would be an automatic trigger to investigate why 3 or 4 elected members do not agree with the accuracy of those minutes. 1, maybe, but 3 or 4, I don't think that's good. I don't think really what we should be looking at is that minutes should be unanimous, because any elected member who has an issue about a recording should be fixed before it's actually confirmed and ratified. So again, there's so many anomalies through this whole process, through the Section 270 internal review of council decisions, has raised a whole lot of issues which I believe have not been resolved by an internal investigation. And I think it needs an independent person to investigate this whole process and the whole matter, to actually put to bed exactly what is recorded. There are requirements around what gets recorded in minutes. There's also requirements that how you declare conflict of interest and when and how. So again, I still say that this has not been resolved in my mind with the response. And yes, I understand that there's a statement in there stating that the complainant or the community member can go to the ombudsman if they're not happy with it. So I think that's the reason why I'm putting this motion up.
Thank you, Councillor. Do we have a second of this? Thank you, Councillor Robertson. Would you like to speak to this, Councillor Robertson?
No.
Would anyone else like to speak to this recommendation? Councillor Bradford?
I suppose I need a little bit of advice. My concern is if we have a, first I said I'd get this to be, I'd like to agree with that statement. These issues just cause so much grief to councillors. It's unfortunate. I can understand that the administration saying that the minutes director is properly are. The issue to me is not the fact that the minutes were proposed. There was a procedure that wasn't followed. Certainly the normal procedure would be followed in council. It wasn't followed that evening, in my opinion. So the issue to me is not whether the minutes are correct, it's whether we, in some way or another, breached our process in some way, in the fact that the mayor declared conflict of interest before the gallery was invited back into the room. That's quite obviously the issue. So is that an issue? Is this complaint asked the wrong question? I suppose there's one way you can put it.
Through the mayor, yes, you could say that. So the aim of Section 270 review is to review a decision of the council or ASTA or someone acting on behalf. So in my mind, that review is undertaken that process. As we've stated, and then yes, what was uncovered, that wasn't what the person was complaining about or had concern about. It was about to do with the process that occurred. So hence the advice is that if they feel that that was something that was not correct, then they should put a complaint into the ombudsman and have it investigated appropriately. And the council can spend the money and undertake it into the external investigation itself. But ultimately, the body that would determine if something was right or wrong would be the ombudsman. So there's two separate processes that have occurred. One was around the confirmation of those minutes, and it doesn't require a majority or unanimous decision of the chamber. That's not specified in the Act. It's a majority vote, and the majority was why it was carried. So it should be lodged with a formal complaint, or the council can choose to, by resolutions and put forward to the chamber. Invest in an independent review, but we need to be specific of what we're actually reviewing. It's not the decision to adopt the minutes or not, we're obviously reviewing a completely different matter.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm concerned that a review will find the same result because we're asking the wrong question. So I'm not sure what the process is from here on, but I just want to clarify that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. If no one else wants to speak to this recommendation, all those in favour? Oh, sorry, yeah, right. Thank you.
I guess, council has advantage to processes that we can dismiss these types of complaints that come through vexations, or we can make a decision to get an external investigation done, or we can then refer it on to the ombudsman if we feel that investigations come up with something which needs more investigation. I guess it's really around if the chamber supports this investigation, just remember in terms of reference what the investigation plan will be about, because sometimes it's around looking at what has caused this, why it come about, and once you start digging into finding out the causation of things, you find other issues which need to be included in the investigation. So I think that's where the process is, and I guess the two documents, the one from the council, the one from the community member, is the foundation of the investigation will look at to see if there's anything in there that needs to be, further investigated, but it could be, because you don't know until you start working into it. The investigator may look at it as a context saying, well, hang on, this is not quite right, or this is okay. It may come back with the same result, but at least we've done everything in our power as possible to ensure that we've been open, we've done the proper process into ensuring that that the whole internal review and the issues raised have now been dealt with, and hopefully the community member will be satisfied with the outcome of that, and so will the council will be satisfied as well. But it may not. This is where I think we don't want to have constant complaints coming in again on a single subject. So I think we need to look at this process and try and do it in a more equitable manner to ensure that the community is satisfied and the council is satisfied that we've done everything in our power to resolve the issue. Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favour? All those against? That recommendation is lost.
Division, please.
All those in favour?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Councillor Robertson. Councillor Kennedy. Those against? Councillor Glasgow. Councillor Moran. Mr. Schofield. And Councillor Hayes. Motion is lost. And we'll all then I can change that shape.
Should I have gone home? Oh, sorry.
Thank you very much, Councillor Henderson, for that. And now we're up to
11.1.
11.1. And we're up to Bluerio Peninsula Tourism Review and Work Plan. So the first recommendation is that Councillor Stephen Lloyd, Bluerio Peninsula Tourism Review and Work Plan report. Do you want to move that discovery? And someone to second that? Thank you very much, Councillor Mann. Anybody want to speak to that? Anybody want to speak to that? All those in favour? That's carried, thank you. All those against? That's carried, thank you. The second recommendation is that council endorse the recommendations and direction outlined in the Bluerio Peninsula Tourism Review. Someone like to move that way? Councillor Hales, thank you. And seconding that, Councillor Henderson, thank you very much. Do you really want to speak to it? Anybody want to speak to it? Not all those in favour? And those against? That's carried, thank you. The third recommendation is that the council work together with regional funding partner councils and the board of the Bureau of National Tourism on the implementation of the Bureau of National Tourism review work plan. Someone wants to move that plan? Councillor Henderson, thank you, and seconded by Councillor Schofield. Either of you like to speak to that? No, anybody like to speak to that? Councillor Robertson.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, this Fleurieu Peninsula Tourism Organisation is in real trouble. And the report from Economic, whatever the name of the Effectiva, highlights just how much work has got to be done on that. I'm not sure that it doesn't cost us a lot of money each year. But then again, we don't get much out of it either, I don't think. And what I'm concerned about here though is that the work that has to be done, is there a really clear idea of what are the indicators of success of the reform of this body? Because I don't think it's clear.
I'll ask the CEO, or perhaps Graham. Do you want to answer that?
Sure, thanks. Through the chair. Yes, I think part of what the reports identified is that there needs to be stronger governance reforms about some of those things. So the work plan itself, which is the subject of the current motion, is what that's all about. It's about improving the governance structure. It's about improving the accountability and then heading towards a more skills-based board arrangements of those very things that you raised, Councillor Robertson, that have been raised through the Effectiva review can be worked through. That's essentially what the work plans are aiming to achieve, to strengthen that governance and those things can be looked at more seriously.
If I might ask a question again, yeah, sure. I mean, the consultant, Effectiva, I'm sure they highlighted that they wanted to see a smaller board, more skill-based board. They wanted to make sure that there was going to be effective contributions being received from all the member councils that wasn't there in the past. And those sort of things can be, yeah, you can end up with a smaller board, one that's more skills based. But then after that, being put in place, what is it about this organisation that's going to be providing a benefit for us to be continuing on with it? And the options for us, for me, for instance, is that in relation to what we do down here, I don't see much benefit flowing from it. I don't think that the money that's used on it would be better utilised locally.
Through the mayor, I think the intent would be that it then focuses in on the key focus areas that have been outlined in the report, which are essentially looking at the experience development of the region, marketing of the region, industry capability and collaboration, and plans being built under those focus.
In terms of your what success look like, I mean, the Fleurieu Peninsula as a region would be the most visited region outside of anywhere in South Australia. We're already up there in terms of one of the most visited regions, but it's around our capacity to attract more South Australian Tourism Commission funding and support for whether it be collaboration on projects, events, marketing. At the moment, we're only looking at our national marketing. International marketing is not doing too well at the moment, but it's about strengthening the Fleurieu collaboratively with our 4 constituent councils as a great place of tourism destination, and where we collaborate on experiences and support our tourism operators. So the way in which we seek funding and support from the SATC is only through the regional tourism body. It was structured that way many years ago. we don't get direct funding unless we actually apply for an event from the SAPC, and even then we would need to seek support that it is a benefit to the region. So we're looking for regional collaboration. That's what the Open to Tourism was established for.
Thank you. Are there any more questions or any further debate on this? If not, I'll put it to the floor. All those in favour? Sorry, Councillor Watson, did your hand up or down?
No.
And those against? That's carried, thank you.
Not a division on anybody's here.
Sure. All those in favour, please stand.
No, that's not.
Councillor Henderson. Councillor Ridgely. Councillor Layton. Councillor Schofield. And Councillor Hawes. And those against, Councillor Watson. And Councillor Kemp. And sorry, and Councillor Glasgow. That motion is carried. We now come to item 11.2, economic development strategy, community consultation. And I would like to thank very much the economic development strategy working group that has put considerable time into an effort into development of this plan and getting it ready for community consultation. So those elected members that were involved in that working group and also the staff from Graham's team, thank you very much. I know that you and the volunteers that were on the working party have all worked extremely hard in relation to this. The first recommendation is that Council receive a note of the economic development strategy community consultation report. If someone can move that by Councillor Henderson, thank you. And seconded by Councillor Robertson. Do you want to speak to that? Does anybody want to speak to that? Have any questions? If not, all those in favour? That's carried unanimously, thank you. The second recommendation is that Council adopt the draft economic development strategy for purposes of public consultation and endorse the implementation of the economic development strategy community consultation plan. Do I have someone to move that way? Thank you, Councillor Robertson and Councillor Henderson again. Do anybody want to speak to that? Does anybody want to speak to that? Councillor Kemp?
Thank you, Jean. I'm speaking against this proposal due to the fact that even though the last time we saw this was the 5th of May, the Strategic Planning Advisory Group informed government by Zimmerman. Since then, a lot of work's been done by the advisory group. We haven't really received a report from the advisory group back in CASPAC on this. We haven't even sat down since we've been able to get back face to face to discuss it. Look at the economic strategy. It's been put out for public consultations. It's been presented to us now at a council meeting. There's no real time to discuss it. I would have liked to see the advisory group provide a report back to CASPAC, and CASPAC had a good discussion on it. And before it came to a decision to go out to public consultation. So that's why I'm supporting it.
You respond to that?
Through the mayor,
Point of order.
Well,
I'm not asking a question for Mr. Padhouse to respond to. We're inviting Mr. Padhouse into a debate, which there's no question asked Mr. Padhouse. So that's what the
I refuse your point. I don't accept your point of order. It is my role as presiding member. If I think that any clarification is required, then the elected members need to have all the information possible to them. And so I will ask the director or the CEO for any clarification around anything they might have into the debate. So no, I don't accept your point of order.
I'm going to motion to overrule the decision by the meeting.
Do you have a second for that? Ms. Robertson? All those in favour to overrule? Those against? That's lost.
Meeting, please.
Just one.
Just like green. Just clarify what needs to do with units.
She's unnecessary.
So that was
So we have to know that we're not reasonable, who's we think the next of the return to overrule the overrule. So we should disagree with them. Yes. Right, change to the channel. We haven't. So we just started, and that was last. So now it's a quarter division. Yeah.
so all those in favour of
The divisions, the division been called.
so divisions being called, so the elected members that
Division.
Screen does go.
They don't see that. Yeah, it does.
It's not that one. It's not.
It's really good this time.
So councillor Ken called.
Just putting out the division.
Just calling out the division, so all those in favour? Councillor Robertson and councillor Ken. And those against? Councillor Henson. Councillor Glasgow. Councillor Little. Councillor Mann. Councillor Schofield and Councillor Paynes. The motion is lost. So now go back and I'm just asking Director Pettas if you could have one.
Sure, thanks, Mayor. Through you, just to clarify the process. So ahead of the Zoom meeting that occurred in May, the working party had done a significant amount of work preparing the draft document that was subsequently workshopped at that Zoom meeting. And yes, some time has passed since that workshop with that material, but there was some distraction in relation to the COVID-19 support package that was rolled out since that time as well. So it was time to come back to where that workshop was left off with this particular report. And the intent at that time, and as was presented by a number of the members of the working party through that Zoom meeting, was to then proceed with putting some final touches on the strategy in preparation for consultation. It's very important. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mann.
Thank you, Mayor Jenkins. Just a question and statement. As with a lot of our motions in usual practice, once it goes out community consultation, will that come back to a workshop for our discussions?
Yes, through the Mayor, that would be the intent of this. So once all the collation or the consultation has been collated, as we usual projects, we would take that back to the members of the workshop.
Thank you for the clarification. Yeah, I guess firstly, I just want to thank my fellow elected members who were involved in this working party. I understand there's a lot of work and time that went into this document, but also the staff time. I want to thank the staff and also the board of stakeholders as well. This is being one of them. I think it's a great document. I think it's very much needed and for a long time has been pushed for. I think looking forward and where the document's going to take us is where the excitement comes from. I'm quite happy with the work that's been done by the working party and ready for the document to go out to broader consultations and come back for us to fine tune, considering what the community says and then any other points. So I'm happy with how that process is going. Yeah, I just think they've done an excellent job and just want to commend everyone involved. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else want to speak to the second motion? Councillor Glasgow.
I'd just like a bit of a comment. I will support it because it needs to go out to public consultation because we don't know what's up any longer than we have to. But at our last meeting, in the agenda, it says that there was general consensus that the document was ready for consultation. It was a very short meeting. I was determined to keep it down to 1 hour, and there was a significant amount of discussion around certain aspects. And I don't believe that those, well, I don't believe any changes made for that particular meeting unless I've missed something. Ken Brooks not recommend that, so I think there is still a little bit of work to be done. I'm happy to go to consultation to hear the community point of view, but I certainly believe that community members have more to contribute.
Thank you, Councillor Glasgow. Councillor Robertson, we are closing the debate. Does anybody want to speak? Councillor Robertson, closing the debate? No? Please go ahead.
Yeah, this particular document is one that had very good, robust inputs from the community members, all of whom were highly experienced in the private sector. And that comes through in a lot of the content that's in the report. In the end, would have been simpler if we hadn't had COVID-19 come along, but we did have it come along, and so that upset both the rhythm and the content of the report. But the intent, I think, is for it to be a bold economic development strategy. And I think one of the issues that could have gone on, having internal debates within the committee as to what was being included and what wasn't. And to the extent the document is evolving, but I think it's time that it goes out to the community to get feedback from that. It's their document. I trust that the community will be vigorous in terms of reading it and giving feedback. That will then guide the final process as to what's in that document.
Thank you, Councillor Robertson. That closes the debate. All those in favour? And those against? That's carried unanimously. Item 11.3, which is the 2020-2021 Arts and Cultural Rights Programme. The recommendation is that Council receive and note the Arts Programme report. Councillor Hales moving that way and Councillor Schofield seconding that. Either of you want to speak to the report? Does anybody want to speak to the report or ask any questions? Not put that to the vote. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Second recommendation is that Council adopt the 2020-2021 Arts and Culture Grant Programme. It should be a grant or grant programme, and a call for applications subject to final adoption of the 2020-2021 budget. Someone like to move that way, Councillor Henderson, thank you, and Councillor Lang, thank you very much. Do you want to speak to that? Does anybody want to speak to that? Councillor Robertson?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This program is pretty small stuff. It's $10,000. We had some trouble in terms of getting it fully accessed and used in 1920. I'd like to get some idea of why it was felt that we, even though it's a very small amount of money, and the individual grants are not going to be great. But apart from that, is there any reason why we didn't any lessons learned out of 1920 as to why we had a lack of applications, and what are we doing in this year that will get greater competition for those funds?
Thanks to the Mayor. A couple of responses, I guess. Firstly, it's always good not to have a COVID-19 year. That probably helps in terms of generating being able to get some cash on these programs. But that aside, it's still in its infancy as well. There's still some nurturing development going on with the artists in that space as we proceed with the program, but also the space that we have in Coral Street. And it wasn't necessarily that it was undersubscribed so much as a number of the projects could end up going ahead as a result of COVID-19 as well. So I think there was still some fairly strong support for the program. It's just that some of those the last financial year could end up going ahead because of particularly circumstances.
Are there any more comments or with the debate? Not following the session before. All those in favour? Those against? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Third recommendation in this item is that Council appoint the Arts and Culture Advisory Group to assess the 2021 arts and culture right applications and to make subsequent recommendations to council. Councillor Schofield moving that way and Councillor Henderson seconding that. Do either of you want to speak to that? Does anybody want to speak to that? Councillor Kemp?
Thanks, Ms. Jenkins. Just a question to the CEO. Does the Arts and Culture Advisory Group report to the council or report to CASPAC? Because, yeah, just answer the
It's through CASPAC. So, their recommendations for adoption come via CASPAC and CASPAC will report to council. So ultimately, CASPAC is created by council. There's the council's committee. CASPAC's not the decision-making, council is.
just that the recommendation is not very clear of the process that should be taken. That's it. Just could confuse me.
Correct, and I'm happy to look at some of the wording if you'd like to articulate that a little bit better through the mover and the seconder.
I guess it's just mainly to make subsequent recommendations via CASPAC to council.
Are you happy with that, Councillor Schofield and Henderson? Councillor Kemp, any further discussion? All those in favour? That's carried unanimously, thank you. The main item 11.4, which is the Festivals and Their Sponsorship Program. First recommendations that Councillor Stephen note, the program report. Councillor Henderson moving that way and Councillor Schofield seconding that. Do either of you want to speak to that? Councillor Robertson?
Yes, Mayor, just a question. On page 242 at the top, it says here that the New Year's Eve and the Rock and Roll Festival budgets will continue to be presented separately to council as they are council managed events. My understanding of earlier decisions we made in regard to our policy on the was that these two events were no longer going to be council managed events. They might have been supported financially, but that we were definitely looking, in the case of the Rock and Roll Festival, to the Historic Motor Vehicles Club. I'm not sure about what's happening with the New Year's Eve events, but I thought we had agreed that the council will no longer be managing these events, and that the staff we had involved in the events would be looking after higher order activities and managing individual events.
Thanks to the Mayor. No decision has been made by council to cease managing those events. There's certainly been a desire to transition those events to other parties that could coordinate those events with some level of council support to still occur, and we continue to make those efforts. At this point in time, they're still council managed events.
Any other comments in relation to recommendation 1? If not, I'll put it on the floor. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. The second recommendation is that council approve the 2021 Festivals and Events Sponsorship Program guidelines and corporate applications, subject to the final adoption of the 2021 budget. Councillor Kemp, moving that way. Any seconding that? Councillor Schofield? Either of you want to speak to that? Councillor Kemp?
Thanks, Mayor Jenkins. I think it's a great alternative considering the situation we're faced with the results of COVID-19. We still don't know what will be going on in the future in that space, but to have alternative programs and events to attract people to our town and around Plurio is a fantastic initiative. I just hope we get some great programs that will come out of this into future development. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else want to speak to that? All those in favour? That's carried unanimously, thank you. The third recommendation is that council appoint the chief executive officer as the returning officer for the purpose of the ballot to determine the council member representatives on the 2021 festivals and events sponsorship program, and that on completion of the ballot be authorised to declare the successful council members.
Do you want to see any nominations, unless you get more than three? That is
Okay. All right, I'll just, the CEO's just suggested to me that I see how many nominations we have, because if we have more than three, that doesn't take effect. How many people would like to nominate for that? Councillor Henderson, Councillor Schofield, I'll put my hand up for that as well. Does anybody else want to nominate for that? If that case, then there is recommendation 3 will be that council appoint Councillor Henderson, Councillor Schofield and myself. You sure there's no one else that wants to be on it? To the Festival and Event Sponsorship Assessment Panel to assess the 2021 Festival and Sponsorship applications and to make subsequent recommendations to council. Would someone like to move that one? Councillor Lidley and seconded by Councillor Hayes. Does anybody want to speak to that? All those in favour? That's carried unanimously, thank you. There are no reports of council decisions in relation to corporate customer services. Item 13, environment and infrastructure services. The items related to financial assistance, car park permits and vehicle lease licence fees. The recommendations, the first recommendation is that council receive a note of financial assistance, car park permits and vehicle lease licence fees report. Moved by Councillor Henderson and seconded by Councillor Robertson. Do either of you want to speak to that? Anyone want to speak to that? All those in favour? That's carried unanimously, thank you. Second recommendation is that council waive the Esplanade car park permit fees to the Causeway Cafe and the Dunes Mini Golf for the 2021 financial year and issue 2 permits per business. Someone like to move that one? Councillor Henderson, and seconded by Councillor Schofield. Does anyone want to speak to that? Councillor Robertson?
Yes, Mayor, I'm just wondering, I can understand that from the point of view of the Causeway Cafe. I wonder whether two parking permits are required for the mini golf. So that's one question. The second one would be, I would hope that the car parks that are allocated for those businesses, that they're far away from the other end of the car park. If we're providing them, we're really going to need all the car parks we can get to make a city an attractive place to come from, to enjoy for the weekends. And we don't have many car parks to give away, and if we do give away any, they should be at the far end of the car park, I think.
Is that a question, Councillor Robertson?
Yeah, can they, is there a reason why we put 2 permits for the mini golf? Also, is it possible to have the permits issued? Do they just make an issue of a parking permit, or do they get a certain location?
Graham will add to it. So there are some permanent parking areas, directly opposite, just by the visitor information centre, and that's to enable, particularly Causeway Cafe to unload their goods and stock. They do that, so they have 2 permits, and the mini golf has 2 permits. They obviously have employees, and it's still their employees. But if those permit spaces are also used by other permit holders, whether they be council staff, and also some volunteers that volunteer have a permit that they can utilise for a period of time, but they can actually utilise it anywhere in the car park of the foreshore car park, but it's only for the foreshore area.
Okay.
Are there any other comments or any further discussion? I'll put that to the floor. All those in favour? Those against? It's carried unanimously. And third recommendation is the council waive the CPI increase for the Pipcorn lease licence fee for the 2021 financial year. Someone like to move that one, please. Councillor Kemp, thank you. And seconded by Councillor Ridley. Do you want to speak to that? Anybody want to speak to that? Councillor Robertson?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Could I get an idea from the staff, please, about the what is at present? What is this Peppercorn lease fee?
It's detailed on page 262 of the report, under the heading Peppercorn lease licence and fees. So it ranges between $138 and $271 per club.
And so the CPI increase to be applied to that will be 1.8 or 2%, I guess?
About $77.
And I'll be whatever the CPI is at the time. I know what the current quarter is, it's 2.4, I believe, at the moment. So it's whatever the CPI is.
Okay. The point of my asking these questions was to determine at which point we need to cease issuing waivers or for these various fees and licenses. I mean, is it going to be that we're doing it for this financial year only, or is it anticipated to continue on, or is it going to be that these I guess subsidies or whatever you call would be to have some other criteria for when they're applied?
Through the Mayor, as detailed in the report, only specifically as requested because of the current COVID restrictions and the impost on these community groups, the recommendation is specifically for the 2021 financial year.
Okay.
Any further questions or any further debate? No, I'll put it to the floor. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. 13.2 is the Commonwealth Infrastructure Investment Black Spot Program funding deed. I might do that on block. Unless anybody has any objections. Moving on block, Councillor Ridley. Any other second for that? Councillor Henderson. Do either of you want to speak to that? Does anybody want to speak to that? Councillor Quinn.
Meeting, just a question. Are we trying to review our budget? Are we contributing to the Australian Road development as well, or is this the Commonwealth Fund will cover all the costs?
Through the Mayor, Commonwealth funding covers all the costs. And the reason for it coming to council was the documentation required for signing and sealing of the Mayor and CPI.
Any further discussion? Put to the chamber, all those in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. We now move to item 13.3, which is the lease renewal of the Victor Program Club. I will do this in two recommendations. The first one being council receiving a note for the land lease renewal for the club, the report, would someone like to move that way? Councillor Robertson, thank you, and seconding that, Councillor Henderson. Anybody want to speak to it? Anyone want to speak to it? All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. The second recommendation is that council endorse the lease from the Albury Town Pro Club for a further 5 years until the 30th of June 2025. And the Chief Executive Officer will be authorised to sign the seal of release on behalf of the City of Newcastle. Moved by Councillor Henderson and seconded by Councillor Hales. Anyone want to speak to that? Anyone want to speak to it? All those in favour? That's carried unanimously, thank you. We now have minutes of council committee meetings, the first one being the Subcommittee's Transport Advisory Committee, and the recommendations the council receiving notes of the minutes of the meeting held 17th of June. Councillor Henderson moving that way and seconding that, Councillor Hales. Any discussion in relation to those minutes or questions? All those in favour? That's carried unanimously, thank you. The minutes of the CEO Performance Review Committee of the 11th of June. The first recommendation is that the council receive the minutes and other recommendations contained therein. Would someone like to move that way? Councillor Henderson, thank you, and seconding Councillor Kemp. Anyone would like to speak to that? Anyone want to speak to that or any questions? All those in favour? That's carried unanimously, thank you. The second recommendation is that council endorse the CEO key performance indicators for the review period July 2020 to June 2021 as listed below. Would someone like to move that way? Councillor Henderson, thank you, and Councillor Schofield. Either of you want to speak to that? Does anybody want to speak to that? All those in favour? That's carried unanimously, thank you. Fourteen point three, Disability Access and Inclusion Advisory Committee meeting minutes. The recommendation is that we receive a note of minutes of the meeting held 11th of June. Councillor Henderson, thank you very much, and seconded by Councillor Hales. Does anybody have any questions or comments in relation to those minutes? Not, I'll put to the floor. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously, thank you. Audit Committee minutes of the 6th of July. The first recommendation is the council receive a note of the minutes from the meeting held Monday the 6th of July as provided at attachment A. So I'd like to move that way. Councillor Leslie, thank you. And secondly, Councillor Schofield. Either of you want to speak to that? Does anybody want to speak to it? All those in favour? That's carried unanimously, thank you. The second recommendation is the council notes the audit committee has reviewed the draft community plan 2030 and provides the following documented feedback. I won't read all of that out, you've got that in front of you. Would someone like to move that way? Councillor Westbrook, thank you, and seconded by Councillor Hales. Thank you very much. Either of you want to speak to that? Anybody want to speak to that or have any questions? If not, I'll put that to the floor. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously, thank you. The third recommendation is that council notes the audit committee has reviewed the draft 2021 annual business plan budget and provided the following feedback that's noted in the recommendation. Would someone like to move that way? Councillor Kemp, thank you, and you want to second for that? Councillor Westbrook, thank you. Do either of you want to speak to it? Does anybody want to speak to that or have any questions? Put that to the floor. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Item 14.5, the Federal Regional Community Services Advisory Committee meeting. And the recommendation is receiving a note in the minutes of the meeting held on 14th of July. Would someone like to move that way? Councillor Schofield, thank you very much. And seconded by Councillor Mann, thank you very much. Does anybody want to speak to those minutes or have any questions now? Put that to the floor. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. We have the subsidiaries and representative reports and the recommendations that the council received and like the representative reports for July. Would someone like to move that way? Councillor Schofield, thank you, and Councillor Hale seconding that. And Councillor Schofield, I know that you wanted to speak briefly about the horse tram authority.
Thank you. Just letting elected members know today we had a full-day workshop revisiting our business plan, identifying projects and priorities in the way that we wish to go. Pleasing also to note that the horse tram, despite COVID and the restrictions, we are limited to half our numbers. Most of our trams have been full. And I guess the other good news is that our merchandise for the last 12 months, working on the trestle table, has banked $12,548.05, has a merchandise of sales profit of $9,208.94, and has stock on hand at retail value of another $9,000. So we're quite pleased with the way that the merchandise sales are going, and we are increasing the merchandise, and we're also looking for further volunteers so that we can open for longer hours. But I would say at this particular stage, given the causeway, the amount of closures we've had to have with wind, the COVID restrictions, the board members are reasonably pleased at the way that we're operating.
Thank you, Councillor Schofield, and well done to view the volunteers and see Nedra there in the gallery, who is one of the volunteers. So thank you very much for the work that we do there. Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mayor Jenkins. Just a couple of questions to the CEO for the Aquatic Centre. Any movement between the two councils on the executive officer selection process, and what other support are the two councils providing in that space, because we need to get some programs up and running. I know the chair will be talking to you, but just want to know.
Thank you for the questions, Councillor Kim. I actually referred to Karen Krasinski, who's been dealing with Elizabeth at Alexandria Council.
Through the chair, I'm going to have to take that one on notice and get back to you, Councillor Kim. Sorry.
Are there any further questions or would you like Councillor Robertson?
Yes, I'd like to highlight from my representation on the Victor Harbour High School Governing Council that the high school this year has put on a really wonderful program of taking its art show, which was to be part of the sale presentation, to take it online virtually. Kate Burdett, the business manager of the high school, worked over the school holidays to teach herself how to curate art shows and do it in a virtual environment. It's pretty amazing. Maggie Savage, who's the arts teacher over there, is also lined up and arranged for some really spectacular artwork to be shown in that space. I think there was to be a display out the front here this evening for the.
We're going to have a display on screens out here during Sala, which is in August. Sala hasn't commenced as yet, it's my understanding. So, and we've also promoted the link on Coral Street Art Space site, and we'll also have the link on our website.
Yeah, I would, that's fine. I mean, Sala's about to begin. It's and August 1 to August 31st festival in South Australia. I would urge members to have a look at the Victor Harbour High School website, which is a very good quality website. You'll see on the front page of that the sale program. Click on that link on the front page of and for anyone looking on the live stream, click on the sale program for this year, and you'll be taken through a virtual art gallery to see what's been achieved at the school this year, not just in terms of the art that's produced, but also in terms of now they have sunk the effort into creating a website that they can use again and again for virtual displays of their art. So that's a pretty amazing achievement by the Victor Harbour High School, given that the other schools that were normally part of the school's art show agreed earlier on not to put on the show this year, but Victor Harbour High School went ahead and did it on their own. So I would urge people to have a look at it.
Thank you. If there's no further comments in relation to that recommendation or the representative reports, I put the recommendation to the floor. All those in favour? It is just after 8 o'clock, so it's time that we had a break for 10 minutes. And if we come back at 8:15, then we can continue.
stuff.
We're up to item 15.2, the Regional Waste Authority Strategic Plan. And I'll do that recommendation on block. Yes, anybody has any queries or the recommendations, the council received a vote for a Regional Waste Authority Strategic Plan report. And item 2, that they approve the Fleurieu Regional Waste Authority Strategic Plan as provided in attachment A. Would somebody like to move that on block? Thank you, Councillor Westbrook. And then seconded by Councillor Henderson. Do either of you want to speak to that?
No, is there any questions?
No, does anybody have any questions or Councillor Robertson?
Yes, that's good stuff. Agree with all of it. I just would like to see us be, I know it's got to be a decision of all the 4 councils, isn't it? Yes. All the 4 councils that are part of this waste authority. So, you know, one council can't get in front of the others, but I think it'd be great to see the councils doing a little bit more research than this is the 10-year plan for the waste authority, and doing a little bit more in terms of the research in there. But it's a good plan. See how it goes. Hopefully they'll get a bit bolder as time goes by. But yeah, I think it's good stuff.
Thank you. Any good comments or questions? Councillor Basil? Yeah, closing concentrate, there's no further comments or questions.
Can I just add on what Councillor Robertson was saying, in relation to any thing that this council would like to do, it has to become part of our strategic plan, because the waste authority doesn't have any money, doesn't keep any money. Every year they balance up their books and they either get credit or an invoice that's over at the end of the financial year. So any issues that we believe that the authority should be undertaking needs to be funded by the councils. So it's really any plans that we need or would like to consider need to be part of our strategic plan so that we're prepared to put the money into it.
Thank you, Councillor Basil. I'll put the.
Can I ask a question, please? Just
I'm sorry, the debate's been closed, Councillor Robertson.
Question.
If you've got a quick question, Councillor Robertson, I will allow it, but normally after the debate has been closed.
Oh, Mayor, please, just let it go. I mean,
Councillor Robertson,
yes, Mayor.
normally after the debate's closed, there's no more questions.
Yeah.
But what I'm letting you know, because you wanted to ask a question, is that I will let you, but in future, can you please ask questions prior to the debate being closed? What is your question?
My question was triggered by, not that the debate had been closed, my question was triggered by what Councillor Glasbrook had said, and I thought of that question at that time. My question is that in relation to these authorities that we've got going, like particularly the Aquatic Centre and the Waste Authority, if a particular council has a desire to get something done and they'd like to do it, and they'd like to put the money into doing it, is it possible, I don't know whether this is a question to Councillor Basbrook or to the CEO, but is it possible for us to say, well, we'd like the council, the Waste Authority to carry out some research program or get involved in a circular economy test trial or whatever, that we work out with the authority, right, we're the only council that's interested in doing it. So if we sum up the money, are we able to sort of get some bespoke research done? Or do we have to have an agreement from all the other councils to do it?
I certainly understand that the Western Australia going to take specific jobs. I mean, for example, Kangaroo, a couple of years ago now, filled a investment composter over there, which was funded by the Kangaroo Council, was undertaken by the council, so certainly they would be project specific for individual council, yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Now return to the recommendations, and I'll put those recommendations to the floor. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Recommendation 16.1 is that council receive and note the mayoral report for July 2020. We have a move for that. Thank you, Councillor Henderson, and seconded by Councillor Mann. Does anybody have any questions or any comments on the mayoral report? Put that to the floor. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. 16.2 is the council receiving the elected member reports for July 2020. Moved by Councillor Hales and seconded by Councillor Schofield. Does anybody have any questions or any comments in relation to the elected member reports? Put that to the floor then. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Number 17 is matters of urgency. Do we have any matters of urgency?
Yes.
Councillor Robertson, you have matter of urgency. You have 5 minutes to talk in relation to your urgent matter. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I think I have circulated to all the elected members who've read it. The topic of this matter of urgency is that according to the monitoring program being done on the Granite Island, that as far as we know, there is only one breeding pair of penguins left on the island. This essentially means that if that breeding pair is lost to the foxes that have been decimating the population of penguins on the island over the last couple of months, that'll be the end of the fairy penguin, of the little penguin populations on the island. And we need to do everything we can to make sure that we don't get to this point of extinction. There are, because of the process, which I thank the CEO for pointing out to me, this will come up again in terms of the motions without notice, in terms of what to do about that. But it would really be an awful shame if the little penguin population ceased to exist, something that for donkey's years has been a feature of a major attraction to Victor Harbour, if those breeding populations are let go. I know that the primary responsibility for the population of penguins is the Department of the Environment. The Deputy has a role to play, although it's a minor one, in terms of its operation of the causeway, where the foxes travel across to raid the penguin colony over there. But I think that it's time that we step up as a council to make it well and truly known that we want to get some serious action from the Department of Environment. Also, Deputy, to be able to make sure that we keep that last breeding pair and that we set up an arrangement for if there are to be any penguins come back to the island, that we have to in place arrangements that are sustainable, that will be able to let the colony thrive again. So, to me, it will be an awful shame if, after years and years of reviews on this matter and the necessary actions being continuously put forward, that we don't actually take that step of writing to the state government. We already have our federal member has written to the government because she has had, as I have had, community concern over this surviving pair of penguins. And then we need to put in some fairly simple structures to be able to minimise the impact of on the penguin colony of foxes. So that is essentially the matter of urgency, an extension exercise.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. There are no questions on notice. Are there any questions about notice? Councillor Kemp.
Thank you, Jenkins. It's to do with the mosaic artwork, which is on the wall across the road along Gibbon River. Originally, the council approved $5,000 painting of the mural, but now we've got $25,000 grant, I believe, this mosaic work. I'm just wondering, where how did that come about? It wasn't like a formal recommendation to council to come to the Arts and Cultures Advisory Group committee meetings or workshop meetings that this mosaic be changed from a painting to a mosaic.
Ms. Grimes, I didn't take on notice in terms of the process and how the grant application was applied for. I'm not sure. I need to take on notice and I'll get back to you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions about notice? Councillor Westbrook?
Thank you. I just want to ask a question in relation to the application review as to what the process will be to, without their request that they made.
Through the mayor, so I will contact the clubs so that they can formally put their request for financial support to me in writing, and then they can initiate a report from the council. So the contact I had with the club so far was, one was the in-principle support the council provided earlier in the year, and two was the ability to give an update progress with this deputation. Obviously that request of funding was the first that I was seeing the totality of that. But my next step would be to contact them to ask them to formally put that in writing to me, so I can then do report to council for August.
Thank you.
Any further questions?
I can just answer that through the mayor and just speak to the mayor. So that is the process that the clubs understood would take place, that they be able to outline for the members' benefit, and then the next step would be to make it formal approach.
No further questions? We now come to motions on notice, and the first recommendation is that council receive a motion on notice, the recommendation of a common emergency declaration, Councillor Andy Robertson's report. Would someone move that to receive this report? Thank you, Councillor Kemp, who will second for that. Councillor Robertson, thank you. All those in favour of receiving the report? That's unanimously carried. Councillor Robertson, would you like to propose your motion?
Yeah, the motion is that the council rescind the motion of December of last year, that declaration of a climate emergency. The reason for rescinding this is basically there's no substantive action or follow-up that's been taken by the chamber.
Can you please put your microphone on, Councillor Robertson?
Yeah. We'll go back. The motion is to rescind the motion on the declaration of a climate emergency, which was done in December of last year, 7 months ago. There's no substantive action or follow-up has been taken by the Chamber to address the proposed actions. I voted for this, declaration, believing that there would actually be serious practical action taken to make sure that it was followed up. But since then, we've had two major documents we have worked through. One is this year's 2021 business plan and budget. More importantly, the community plan, the 10-year 2020 to 2030 community plan is now going out in sort of pretty much final draft form out for community consultation, and well, it's been out for community consultation, all about to be passed. And there's not a mention in either of these documents about a climate emergency, let alone a paragraph or two in there as to how it impacts on the city of Victor Harbor, and certainly no program of action. We come back to what was said at the December 16th declaration, was that the only thing that's been done is that the CEO was to write to our members of state and federal parliament to say that we were declaring a climate emergency, and that that they should declare a climate emergency as well, and we also probably get around to other places, which the CEO duly did in the following week. I don't believe we should be declaring emergencies unless we're going to take practical, measurable responses. And there were very specific items in that resolution as to what we would be doing in terms of reviewing the existing environmental plans and activities we had, enhancing those, building on them, adding new ones, whatever. Nothing's happened. So if there's nothing happening, there is no emergency. We're not serious about the issue, and this is one of the ongoing and repeated complaints of our community, about our council, is that we talk a big talk, but we don't follow up with the action. Here is us declaring an emergency, laying out a list of activities that were supposed to be done, and nothing's done about it. So to me, it's time to, there is no emergency because we've done nothing about it. We're not paying any attention to it. And this is a problem for elected members, because the only job the administration had to do was to write the letter, which they did. This is coming back to us. We want to go ahead and declare emergencies and get all wound up about issues like this, then where were we when it comes to making sure that that list of activities that was supposed to be done as part of that declaration are done? That's our job to put that in place. But no one put their hand up to do it. No one said, hey, where's the climate emergency in this year's 2021, the budget, the work plan? Where is it even mentioned in our community plan, our overarching plan for the next 10 years? So to me, that's why I'm moving that we rescind that motion. That's when we're going to have, if we still believe there's a climate emergency, let's come back with some serious attempts to actually address that issue in a practical, measurable way, and not go about this kind of frivolous activity where we talk a talk, but we don't walk the talk. So that's my proposal for the rescinding of this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Robertson. Does anybody else, does anybody want to respond to Councillor Robertson? Councillor Hughes? Oh, you want to second it, sorry, does someone want to second that motion? Do you want to speak?
Thank you, Mayor Jenkins. When this motion came up originally, I didn't support it because I felt that the council was not ready to enact on the declaration of emergency. Because there are implications when you start declaring emergencies, because expectations are that action has to be taken. Budgets have to be allocated. You know, and I stated the last time in December when this motion came up originally, that we do have in place a lot of information, a lot of action taking place about climate action and how the council is moving forward in that area. And I think it's doing a very good job in that area. And of course, again, something that the members to look at through staff to say, okay, how can we do more? People talk about being embarrassed by making decisions and rescinding, but making a decision not doing anything about it, it's just embarrassing. And it's really about being ready for it. And I don't think we were ready. We were a bit premature in that space, and I think, you know, maybe this is about putting it on hold for the time being, and when we are ready to move forward, because, you know, to come in August, the third when we do a special council meeting for our budget, to add more cost because all of a sudden we've got to now start taking some action on climate emergency. I think it's really about let's get our backyard in order, and I'm not saying let's not do it in the future, but when we're ready to do it, let's have a proper action plan and proper budget allocated for it. So we actually do tell our community that we are serious about it. But that's why I'm supporting this motion at this stage.
Thank you, Councillor King. Does anybody want to speak in relation to the motion? Councillor Nixon.
Thank you, Mayor. I have to say, first of all, I'm very disappointed that Councillor Robinson has brought this motion to the table. In my opinion, it's very negative and sends a very negative message to our community. Excuse me. When I proposed the climate emergency declaration motion in December last year, I stated that the City of Victor Harbor was already acting on carbon dioxide reduction by installing LED lighting through the city and using recycled plastics and recycled bitumen and paving. And we're investigating a community energy project. However, I also stated that we could do a lot more, and that the climate emergency motion was also saying to our community, we are aware, we care, and we aim to do more. That motion was carried with clear majority. This is not an open-ended emergency declaration, but had 8 specific clauses associated with it. A couple of these I'll read out to you. Clause 5 was that the City of Victor Harbor investigates new opportunities beyond the current budget cycle to ensure the City of Victor Harbor is climate ready and prepared, including improving water resilience and protection of coastal and agricultural communities. Clause 6 was undertakes a review of climate change mitigation and adaptation actions delivered by the City of Victor Harbor to date, and receives costed recommendations in regard to potential tangible actions that the City of Victor Harbor could seek to prioritise these in the short to medium term. If we go to page 425, you'll see that in our budget, we have budget proposals towards some of these actions. We have a review of coastal management study, we have coastal action plan activities, we have the potential employment of appointing 4 full-time equivalent environmental officer, and we have also reuse water scheme for Kent Reserve there, which councillors in this chamber voted to remove from the budget. So we won't be allocating any money towards that at this stage. But that's one of the things we could have been doing into next year to help the climate emergency. Councillors chose not to adopt that particular budget item. So we are taking steps to mitigate the climate emergency because we have these budget proposals in there. And also, besides that, in March this year, I brought another motion to the table, which was for this council to investigate alternatives to fireworks. That was part of reducing emissions into the atmosphere and therefore mitigating climate change. Also, earlier in the year, Director Sanford and I attended the Sea Electric Vehicle plant in Dandenong. That was in March also. And I would love to see a replacement commercial vehicle with an electric model this coming year through our procurement process. However, COVID-19 came along, and that made us completely change our view of what to fund and what not to fund. We've committed quite a lot of funds to support our business community and our general community through the COVID-19 emergency. We still have planned emergency, it's just that COVID appeared as a more immediate emergency response. The concentration of carbon dioxide in our atmosphere as of May 2020 is the highest it's ever been in human history. We have 800 million people, or 11% of the world population, vulnerable to climate change impacts through droughts, floods, heat waves, extreme weather events, and sea level rise. And we've seen all of these in Australia in the past 12 months. If you were to ask some of the communities in Victoria and New South Wales what has eliminated their economic availability, it's not COVID-19. They've already lost their economies through the devastating bushfires, and they will tell you that's because of climate change. So I will not be supporting this motion. I'm very much against it.
Thank you, Councillor Nixon. Does anybody else want to speak to this motion? Councillor Mann.
Thank you, Mayor Jenkins. Yeah, just a few things that I'd like to note down. I appreciate the both comments made by Councillor Robertson and Councillor Henderson. My perspective is that I see both sides and I completely agree with both, and it makes me excited and gives me a lot of joy that both of you are arguing for the same thing, which is to protect and protect our communities, protect our environment, and combat climate change. And I think it's very easy to hear some of this debate and see the motion and think that it's one side against the other, but what's ultimately happening is you're both arguing for the same thing and with the same passion. And I completely taken on board, Councillor Robertson, your points, and I think you're exactly right. If we want to talk the talk, we do have to walk the walk. And I very much appreciate that. And I think whilst sometimes with local government we want to be speed walking and we want things done, the reality is it's more of a slow stroll, and that's one of the negatives with government. But I think also the action we're taking, whilst my perspective is definitely when we were declaring climate emergency, was that it was an advocacy matter, that it was a way that we could advocate and put pressure on high levels of government with that collective group of voices. But it also doesn't just want to be a voice, we want to be taking those actions. And I agree, Councillor Henderson outlined a great number of actions that we're taking currently and that we've taken in the past and that we've got earmarked for the future. And whilst I'd love it to be more and we'd all want to keep doing more, and I think we will aim to do more, I think we're all on the same page about really trying to protect our community, protect our climate, and represent the community, because we know this is a strong issue. One thing I do have an issue with this motion is just the means and the way in which it's done. I think these days, especially in the 21st century, we can be very careful about how ourselves as government, local government, go about doing things and how it can be manipulated and twisted by groups external. This is more broader, but the same kind of concept applies. Whilst COVID is an issue, another issue that we're seeing more and more is socio-cognitive warfare, which is the manipulation of information and manipulation of people's minds online, and that's taking bits and trying to divide groups of people, trying to separate groups, and you see a lot with the foreign state actors, but also with advocacy groups, and there's a lot of different groups using it for their own means, and I think we have to be very careful about how we go about things, not to provide them with free fuel, because if this motion was to go up, it's a clear clickbait where people will see Victor Harbour Council does not support climate change, they think it's not an issue anymore, they think it's solved, that's the title, that's the clickbait, that's what people see, because people don't read the article, they don't go down and see that everyone around the table was supportive of fighting climate change and progressing it and trying to really tackle it. And that's not what people pick up on. And I think increasingly in government, we have to be very, very concerned and critical about how we're going about things. And I very much appreciate what you're trying to do and the words you're saying, and I agree with them, but the means and the, I guess, the optics of this and how it can look for our community, our broader community and reputation, I don't agree with it. I don't think it's what the purpose of your motion is really about, and I don't think it's capturing it. So for those reasons, I won't be supporting this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Brendan. Councillor Westbrook.
Well, I won't be supporting the motion either. It's been difficult decision for me, as you all know, I didn't vote for it for this very reason that Councillor Robinson has brought up on you. This council wouldn't take significant action to start something to an emergency, I believe is significant, you know, an emergency is like a bush fire, everyone pulls together and put it out. Whereas we don't have that opinion, and I knew at the time, that's why I voted against it. But I agree on that, mate, it's very much, in my opinion, to change it, sort of like council, silly in my opinion. We've already written to the ministers and whatever else. I do agree we have climate issues, there's no doubt about that. But if we are going to get serious about making changes in this council, we need to seriously consider the way we think, the way we budget. We want more people, like I've said this many times, we want more this and more that. We've got to start saying we want less, we have to have less. Otherwise, we're not going to get our environment as simple as that. And what we have at the moment is these grand elaborate plans for new this, new that, new everything else that certainly not very strong opinion we can't afford a lot of. And it's not what a council is declared a climate emergency to do, in my opinion. So anyway, probably said too much, but I won't support the motion because I think, as I said, it looks stupid. Well, I don't think we should move in the first place. So, a bit of a competition between.
Thank you, Councillor Westbrook. Councillor Slocum.
No, I won't be supporting the motion. I agree very much with Councillor Henderson and Councillor Mann in their comments. Yes, it's up to us to take action, and so I guess that's every elected member sitting in the room. Perhaps we should have been really positive and became leaders in this field to make some things happen. But the other thing is that COVID did come in, and that certainly did change our priorities and a lot of things. And I guess being a little bit cheeky, I suppose, in one way we did help the climate because during self-isolation, I don't know about anybody else, but our fuel bill went way down, so we weren't contaminating the air. But there are a lot of things happening that we can actually link into. It doesn't have to be a cost to our council to take on partnerships. We've got the new landscape board that's just coming into play and getting their act together, and that will certainly help us in looking at landscape because their charter is to look across everything, not just native vegetation. So I agree. I still think that this is a very important point. I also believe that then, if we're going to do something, then it's up to us elected members to ensure that we put some planning progress in the way that we're going to continue with this project.
Thank you, councillor Schofield. Councillor Two.
Yeah, I also won't be supporting this motion. Some valid points with regards from all councillors around the table. I do think that we would be better to be doing more, Councillor Wilson. We would like to be doing more. I think we have competing priorities. Councillor Glasgow raised our spending and where we put our funds and we'll do it. We do need to think about those things going forward if we want to see more better environment. The Councillor Mann speaking about this is very much an advocacy vote, and I think we won't be surprised at just how much we can do or we would undo if we were to revoke this that resolution. Just how much we've done with our generations coming through and the message we've sent. Feet on the ground, doing the right things from a very early age. With no cost to council, just a way of thinking and bring those people up and through it and those new ideas through in future, that's going to be worth a hell of a lot, I think. So I won't be supporting this motion. I do think around the table, fellow members, we are all on the same page. We want to make a difference, it's just finding the right way to make that difference.
Thank you, councillor Two. Councillor Harris.
Thank you, Mayor Jenkins. Similarly to most of my colleagues, I won't be supporting this motion. Just as I did when this motion was first brought to council, the declaration itself, I took away and I wrote it in the agenda and spoke to people in my age and people in our community about explaining the situation to them, what had happened, what this motion's intent was, all of that. And the answer was very simple and very clear from these young people. They were very happy we made the decision in the first place, so why don't we change it? Now, while it is an emergency declaration, I definitely understand the fact that that word does invoke those emotions of urgency. We are on the table to know that local government isn't the fastest moving beast out there. We know that the processes that anything has to do to be done in this town, to be done across the state, in this sector, isn't as fast as you and I could initiate in our own home. It's just not the case. And so by declaring an emergency, did we solve the issue? No. Did we say that council would set the leadership position in this community and would take actions, would start to pivot our organisation towards that? Absolutely. And so I think that we shouldn't be going out our way to undo the work that has been done. It definitely is. It's that advocacy position, it's that putting that line in the sand to our community saying, this is the ideal. We'll probably just not do some of the time. We'll probably take slower than you would expect, but this is what we'll reach because that's the aim. That's the ideal. And so for that case, I would definitely have to disagree and say that this isn't a case of premature declaration. This is exactly perfectly timed declaration because that's what our community wanted and that's what our community is moving forward. So as we've heard in the room, we're all on the same page realistically. We want the same things. It's just about doing what we can within the system we're in and mixing reality with ideas.
Thank you, councillor Hayes. Councillor Wilson, would you like to close today?
Yes, thanks, Mayor. I would think that I've heard what you're all saying, and we are indeed on the same page. But what I find really unacceptable is that we do nothing. Apart from the CEO having written, her job was to write a letter to the politicians, she did that. That we don't even include in our community plan, even the word emergency declaration. How can that happen? Did we have a brain flag over the last 6 or 7 months? And please, half of that time was nothing to do with COVID. The councillor man, thank him for his contribution. We take on board what he'd like to say. I mean, if he wants to move a variation or amendment to this motion, if he doesn't like the way it's put forward, maybe he'd like to do that. But if not, then to me, it's not just about this, motion of the emergency declaration, it's also about we as a council, when we come to make these grandiose statements, that we attach to a practical reality, that yes, as Councillor Howard has said, the local government is a slow-moving beast, but it doesn't have to be standstill beast, as we have been on this issue for the last 7 months. And so to me, it's about stopping this stuff whereby we don't go out there wishing for things to happen and not going to happen. There were about half a dozen very specific actions that were supposed to be taken beyond the CEO writing the letter. They were, one of them was a review of the entire environment management program that we've got and an assessment of what was good about it, what could be enhanced, what new things needed to be in there. Nothing was done. So to me, and then there were 5 other recommendations that were followed on behind it. And yes, some of the stuff that's been mentioned that we have done as a council, put the LED lighting in, that was a decision made before this declaration was made. That decision to put the LED lighting in was last year. And a lot of the other things that we're doing is just part of ongoing programs. But to me, we have a ways to go as a council in terms of being able to really address the issue that we've raised here, in the sense of having a strategic approach to it, to be able to, put more money into the budget. But it's not all about money, it's about action as well. So to me, it's that this was a way to say, right, council, we've got to stop this stuff. We've got to stop going around promising the earth and delivering very little. And this is a serious issue. Let's get serious about it. So yeah, perfectly timed or whatever else. It's nothing's happened. That's the report card for the for this motion, for this resolution that was made last December. And for those people that say we've got 1 year to go or 5 years to go till Armageddon, well, that's 6 months is a significant time to do nothing. So that's the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Robertson. Close the debate. I now put the rescinding motion to the floor. All those in favour? Those against? That motion is lost. Can I have a division, please? All those in favour? Councillor Robertson? Councillor Kim? Those against? Councillor Matt Henderson? Councillor Westbrook? Councillor Ridley? Councillor May? Councillor Schofield? And Councillor Harris? That motion is lost. And I think this is a lesson for all of us, elected members, being on the same page and wanting something done about climate change in our council area. And given that we have got a budget that is on the table, there is opportunity for you to make sure that there are things in the budget that we might want to take out to actually address climate change, which we all know is important now. We now come to motions without notice. Councillor Robertson.
Thank you, Mayor. I have one motion without notice that's related to the matter of urgency, so I'm following the protocol on that.
As you know, Councillor Robertson, it's very rare that I allow motions without notice to come to the chamber because elected members really need to make informed and considered decisions that need to be have a report attached to them from professional staff. Any decisions need to have budget considerations, and especially if there's capital and operational budget considerations in relation to those motions, they need to be considered carefully. So if there's any of your motion without notice that involves capital budget considerations or is going to need some sort of professional expertise to provide information to the elected members, I won't allow it. I understand though that one of your motions is that you would like the CEO and myself to write to both our federal and state MPs highlighting the Little Penguin demise and asking them to have assistance with that. I'm happy to take that as a motion without notice because that does not have any capital operational budget considerations and doesn't need any further information from our staff at this point. So if you want to put that forward, I'm happy to use the language that you would like to use in formulating your motion, but I'm not going to allow any other motions without notice.
Ms. Jenkins, just a clarification, please. It's my understanding that, why do we have this in the agenda if you don't accept any motions without notice? I know the path you can take that. A motion without notice can be referred to the motion on notice at the next meeting.
Yeah, absolutely.
But so I can't see how you can refuse a motion without notice.
One of my roles as the presiding member is to make sure that all of the elected members have the information in front of them to make a considered decision in the chamber and a wise decision in the chamber. And therefore, if there's any motions without notice that I feel that they're unable to do that unless they have further information, unless they receive information from the staff, then I cannot allow it, I can ask for it to be put on notice. I've said to Councillor Robertson that I'm happy for his motion without notice in relation to letters to the state and federal member. I'm more than happy that can come to the table, so I don't say point blank to no motions without notice, but they need to be very simple motions that don't need any further information attached to them. That's the
Well, I'll continue on with the conversation a couple of days because I agree, if we're not allowed to lose a motion, that knows what happened on there, and if a member feels that they have a matter of urgency, and you're not going to address that matter of urgency, why have that on the agenda as well? That's improper, as far as I'm concerned.
I'll just ask the CEO to read the meeting procedures around this, just to clarify for you.
All members benefit, so there is a process for a matter of urgency, and it's about raising the matter to members' attention, the chamber's attention. It doesn't always associate with the motion without notice or a motion at all, but there is provision, and that's what Councillor Robertson has done. In regards to the motion without notice, the presiding member may refuse to accept a motion without notice if, after taking into account the voting principles, he or she considers that the motion should be dealt with by way of the motion on notice. Again, the Council's own procedures is to maintain an open and transparent approach to governance. These motions should be restricted to matters closely relating to agenda items, housekeeping issues or matters of urgency. When in the opinion of the presiding member, the motion will require action involving the expenditure of conduct and resources, a motion on notice may be requested. The presiding member may refuse to accept a motion if the subject matter is in his or her opinion beyond the powers of the Council, etc. So that's it within the presiding member for that decision.
So I'm happy to take your motions in relation to writing to the state federal members, the ministers rather, but I'm not going to allow any motions that relate to any spending money or information other people need to have.
Well, that's interesting, Mayor, in the sense that the matter of urgency that I raised, which I think is a genuine one, of course, it's not a matter, it's only a matter of presenting the matter of urgency. No one was asked as to whether they thought it was also a matter of urgency, but I would assume that around this table, people would think that the last breeding pair on Granite Island is a matter of real urgency, and that we really have to do something about it. And not just write another letter to the departments involved in the South Australian government.
Sorry, I thought that was one of the things that you wanted us to do, Councillor Robertson.
Yes, but not just, but you're watering it down to saying, well, we'll just write a letter. They've already got one from our federal member who's said that, no, this is a matter of great concern. We need to be in front of that queue saying that it's us really, it's our backyard, it's our patch, it's our issue, that we need to be able to make sure that that last breeding pair isn't the last breeding pair, because, you know, community response to that would be very bad. So here it is, these are the issues here that are, these concerns in the motion here, motion without notice, are not new, not a weekend thought bubble. These are things that have been advocated for decades in many cases.
And I'm more than happy to take from Councillor Robertson as a motion of place for the next council meeting, but we need to move on. Do you want to
Mayor, if you know, in another month's time, when we have the next council meeting.
This is not a debate, Councillor Robertson. Do you want to take the letters as a motion on, or without notice?
If that's all you've got on offer, Mayor, then yes.
How would you like to word that for correct your own?
Well, it's the part one of the motion without notice that I've sent to everyone in this room. You know, that the CEO write to the Minister, Deputy and the Department of Environment and Water, highlighting the community concerns about the impending extension of the Penguin breeding colony on Granite Island.
Thank you. Do I have a second for that motion? Thank you, Councillor Hugh. Does anybody want to speak to that motion? All those in favour? That's carried unanimously.
We'll just get the motion up. Just get it. See that.
That's possible. For the purposes of the gallery and those that are listening live stream, we want to just outline what the council is already doing in relation to penguins on Granite Island.
In response to Councillor Robertson's contact me on the weekend with regards to the matter of urgency, was providing an update on the state. We have been working with you in regards to concerns around penguins. I know that the response was that you want some articulation about what that work was, because I'm in full support of protecting them. and that our staff have been working very closely with the rangers on the island. The island is under care and control of you, but our staff have been assisting with CCTV camera footage and monitoring things that have been boxes over there, and assisting with regards to that process. There are already dogs that are prohibited on the island, and our staff obviously monitor that and expiate that is the case, any dogs are over there. We obviously put our own baits out and around on the island, on the bluff, we have box baits, because we are in that is under our care and control. And we're also aware that Dew is actually supporting Dew approaching duty around the box fence and gate protection, which has already been articulated in the letters from Rebecca Sharkey to both the Minister for Environment and Water and the Minister for Department of Transport. So the council has been doing what we can, but obviously I can articulate that in the letter that I'll write on the council.
We now move on to item 22, which is the first of our confidential items. The first recommendation is that pursuant to section 92 of the Local Government Act 1999, the council orders that all members of the public except the chief executive officer and executive assistant be excluded from attendance at the meeting for agenda item 22.1, confidential CEO performance review committee minutes, 11th of June 2020 and 9th of July 2021. That the council is satisfied that pursuant to section 93 of the Act, the information to be received, discussed or considered in relation to this agenda item is information disclosure of which would involve the unreasonable disclosure of information concerning the personal affairs of any person. The council is satisfied that the principle of that the meeting be conducted in a place open to the public has been outweighed in these circumstances, because the disclosure of details of the CEO appointment agreement may lead to the possibility of court action. Someone like to move it now. Councillor Scobie, thank you, and seconded by Councillor Henderson. Councillor Kemp.
Thank you, James. I want to raise an issue. Item 3, to me, I thought that would be good use for the community to hear, which should maybe excluded from confidentiality. The resident can stay in confidence. Let's get the CEO's opinion if she feels that item 3 could be used to the community today. If not, I guess it would stay in confidence until it's released.
I'll ask the CEO how she feels about it. CEO doesn't have any problem with that being received in public as long as there's no debate that goes into the motion to remuneration.
Yeah, I thought it was just more of a release of the information because it's a good news story.
I'm just wondering whether or not there were second recommendations that council received about the minutes can stay in confidence. So it can be done in public if the council chooses to. So Councillor Schofield and Henderson moved and seconded that remaining confidence, but we've got to vote. All those in favour of remaining confidence? Those against? You unanimously lose. Unanimously lost. So the second recommendation is that council receive and note the minutes for the CEO performance review committee from meetings on the 11th of June and 9th of July. Move Councillor Schofield and second Councillor Henderson. Councillor Goswell.
Just say something along the lines of receive the confidential minutes, if you want to keep them in confidence.
I'm not going to check. You don't keep confidence. I'll release them, is it?
Okay, that's all, thank you.
I'm sorry, I was very rude, through the mayor, I'm sorry. No, well, you could state that confidential minutes at the time of the committee, and that's why they came to the council in confidence, so they were considered confidential by the committee, but they don't have to stay confidential. They'll be released as part of this report.
Any other comments in relation to minutes? I'll put that to the floor. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. The third recommendation is that council endorses the request by the chief executive officer and recommended to the council by the CEO of the Health Review Committee that the CEO receive no remuneration increase for the current year because of the consideration of the external economic environment and its impact on our ratepayers and on our community. So I'd like to move that by Councillor Schofield and seconded by Councillor Henson. Anyone want to speak to that? Anyone want to speak to that? Councillor Jasper?
I want to thank the CEO for their generosity. I think it's good of her to do that in their particular times. And that's doing a thing, and thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much for that. I think you're probably one of the very few CEOs in the state one of the few. I'll put that to the chamber. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Having considered the agenda, or we actually have considered the agenda in confidence, so we're going to leave that item. We move on to item 22.2, which is the audit committee minutes. The recommendation is that pursuant to section 92 of the Local Government Act, the council orders that all members of the public, except Chief Executive Officer, Director of Community Development, Director of Corporate Customer Services, Group Manager, Governance and Finance, and Executive Assistant Corinne Ogle be excluded from attendance at the meeting for agenda item 22.2, audit committee minutes. The council is satisfied that pursuant to section 93K of the Local Government Act, information to be received, discussed and considered in relation to this agenda item by tenders for the provision of services in the way of the provision of auditing council. The council is satisfied that the principle that the meeting be conducted in a place open to the public has been outweighed by the circumstances because the information to be disclosed and discussed has the potential to impact adversely on each of the tenderers as competitive commercial information will be disclosed. Someone would like to move that one. Councillor Kemp, thank you, and Councillor Hale seconding that. Do you want to speak to it? Anyone want to speak to it? Councillor Robertson?
Yeah, I'm just inquiring there. On item 22.1, we passed all those recommendations, which should have meant that the public was excluded from the meeting. But the gallery is still here. I'm not quite sure what's happening.
You voted on the first recommendation that the public be excluded from the meeting, and that was lost.
Okay.
Councillor Robinson, just for your clarity, that was a completely separate item. The CEO wants to review. The chamber resolved not to come under confidence due to that matter. This is now a new item, which now council needs to consider going into confidence on the audit committee. Separate item.
Okay.
Any comments in relation to that item? I'll put it to the floor. All those in favour? It's carried on unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, gallery.